Good morning, and welcome to the May 21, 2019 meeting of the Pima County Board of Supervisors. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Bronson? Here. Supervisor Christie?
Here.
Supervisor Miller?
Here.
Supervisor Valadez?
Present.
Chairman Elias?
Presente, I'm present.
Let the record reflect that all members are present.
Thank you very much, Julie. We have Pastor Steve Young from First Southern Baptist Church here to do the invocation today, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to be offered by Supervisor Christie. Those of you who can stand, please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Oops, sorry. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Thank you, Board of Supervisors, for inviting me to this meeting with prayer. Let us pray. Precious Father, as we gather here today, first we need to say thank you for your love and forgiveness and your salvation that's available for everyone. We come to you this morning asking for your wisdom and protection for our board members of supervisors, Allie Miller, Ramon Valdez, Sharon Barlston, Steve Christie, and Richard Elias, and Chuck Huckleberry. Father, I pray that your wisdom might empower them, that they might have the courage to do what is right. I pray for their wisdom to make correct choices in providing safety for our law enforcement officers, our correctional officers, our firefighters, our Border Patrol agents, and our military, for all our brave men and women who put their lives on the line every time they put on their uniform and report for duty to protect us. We cannot thank them enough for their services to our great nation. Father, we pray for your safety for our children and the residents of Pima County. We pray that our Board of Supervisors will have the power to work together as a team in order to resolve the issues that will be brought before them today. Father, I pray for safety for our schools and parks where our children pray and learn. I pray that they will look for you for guidance and knowledge and guide them to look at the budget to be able to come together for a solution that works for everyone. I encourage all Pima County residents to pray daily for their Board of Supervisors, asking for safety for them and their families. Jesus, I thank you for this opportunity to pray with my board members and the supervisors this morning. I pray that you please protect them. Thank you for your love. Guide us in the direction we need to go. Reveal yourself to us, Father. God bless America. In Jesus' name I do pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge to our flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have a couple changes to today's agenda. On page 8, item 33, case number P19CU00001, Lynn, North Quartz Hill Place. The appellant requests this item be continued for 1 month. So that would be to our second meeting in June, or I think yep. What is it? The 18th of June. Okay. And then page 8, item 35, case number P19CU00005, El Cortijo, LLC, Old Spanish Trail. Appellant has requested this item to be continued to the meeting of July 2nd, 2019. I have some concerns about that, and I'm thinking that it's probably better if we extend it out to the first meeting in August, given that there's a high degree of interest in this particular item, and having it right before the 4th of July would probably leave some people off the table who are going to be out of town celebrating the 4th of July. So I would urge us to change that to the first meeting in August. Are there any objections to that from the board?
I object.
Mr. Chairman, is it possible, is the representative here or the owners of this?
Do we have the owners here or the representative?
The only question I had is why wouldn't we pull it into the 18th of June? Is it the 18th? I can't remember the
Well,
date.
they've asked for a month, and so I'm trying to be generous on the long side rather than on the short side.
Mr. Chairman, if the applicant isn't here, I would object to moving it to August. That was their request, and if we don't know if they're available in August, that's a problem.
Okay. Well, what I would say is we have no objections to the first item being moved for 1 month to the second meeting in June. Please stay in order in the audience. If you're calling out from your seat, you'll be removed from the meeting. That's a
Mr.
long-standing rule that we have here now, so please be respectful.
Mr. Chairman, could I make a substitute motion?
There's been no motion on the
Oh,
floor.
I thought you just moved it to middle of August.
To the middle of August. That's what I'm suggesting. Okay, let's vote. Go ahead and make a motion, Supervisor.
Mr. Chairman, just for the sake of discussion, let me do this. Why don't we go ahead and keep the original date, and if we discover that that doesn't work going forward, or that another date would work better, we can change it. But right now, that's where the request has gone. We've got plenty of time to discover whether or not there's a better date. Let's keep this date right now, and going forward, if we have to change it, we'll change it.
Is that in the form of a motion? Because I'll second.
It is.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion to move the El Cortijo LLC South Old Spanish Trail Type 2 Conditional Use Permit, case number 19CU00005, to the meeting of July 2nd, 2019. Any objections? One, noted for the chair. Very good, motion carries. So we'll move it to July 2nd. And hopefully, the owners, developers, or the representatives will understand and move it further on out to August. I think that would be the most respectful thing to do to the public.
Mr. Chair?
Supervisor
As a-
Christie,
a
please.
quest- As a, just a point, those that are here that were expecting to speak to this issue and may not be available on July 2nd, they do have an opportunity to speak to this issue at call to the audience. Am I correct in that?
Well, actually, what would be more appropriate, Supervisor Christie, would be to open the public hearing, allow them to speak at that point, and then continue the public hearing
Until
to
July
whatever
2nd.
date the developer agrees to.
Fine, I just thought maybe we could move it up so they wouldn't have to wait through the agenda, but that, I have no objection to that.
No, the more appropriate thing is to have them heard during the public hearing.
Mis-
Everybody okay with that? Not really, but we'll make it work.
Mr. Chairman, if I could have a moment of
Supervisor,
personal
please.
privilege.
Personal privilege, please proceed.
I just wanted to mention that Pat Hubbard passed away Sunday, and Pat was dedicated to our community. She served as a 4-H leader. She worked at the Humane Society of Southern Arizona for 25-plus years. She served on the Pima Animal Care Center Advisory Committee and was chair and vice chair of AWASA, and joined Arizona ASA Vet to address her passion of decreasing pet population not only in Tucson but throughout Arizona and New Mexico. She was a personal friend and an icon in the animal world, and she will be missed. She is the reason Pima Animal Control Center is now Pima Animal Care Center, and we will miss her passion and her dedication.
Thank you, Supervisor. I share my condolences with their family and her friends as well. Supervisor Valadez,
Mr. Chairman, point of personal privilege.
please proceed.
Just wanted to, I'll talk a little bit about Betty Liggins, who also passed away since our last board meeting. Used to live in Sunland Vista. She was a mentor to many, a civil rights leader, an advocate. For many years, she had a trailer which she provided health care for many people who couldn't afford it any other way. So she made a tremendous difference in the lives of many, and she also will be missed.
Thank you, Supervisor. Ms. Liggins was a good friend of mine as well, and a proud and dedicated RN and public health nurse throughout her career. And a lot of fun to be around, frankly. And I think she should be remembered for both those things. Anybody else? If not, we'll proceed with pause for pause. And we have a fun dog with us today. What's his name? Pardon me?
Key boy, like key? Key boy. Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting name, we know. Good morning, members of the board. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Supervisor Bronson, for mentioning Pat. She was an absolute treasure, and she's very missed already. This is Key boy. Can you sit? Can you shake? That's a So he knows a few tricks, but other than that, he's kind of a boring dog, but boring in a good way, because he's very quiet, he's very calm. Some of you might not even known that he was here. He just kind of sits, and he likes to sit and watch for whoever is taking care of him, whoever's got the food, basically. So he would like a place with a window so that he can look out and make sure everything going on in his neighborhood's pretty good. Right now here at Pima Animal Care Center, we are doing Name Your Own Price for the month of May, so you've got a little bit of time if you can't make it. We just ask that the price be at least $1. And we will be doing that again throughout the rest of the month. And we are, just a reminder, in the middle of kitten and puppy season, so our numbers are jumping drastically, especially in the number of kittens. So we are in need of a lot of fosters too. If maybe you can't adopt right now, we could really use some fosters as well to help care for some of these kittens that are coming in. We're at over 400 in care right now, and we are just at the beginning of the season. So thank you so much.
Very good, thank you. Now, that may be kind of a boring dog, as Key Boy was described, but that probably means it'd be a really good public works dog. Eh, see, I got you. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. But please, anybody, if they're interested in owning a nice animal, please talk to our folks at Animal Care, or if you're interested in adopting Key Boy, I'm sure we could teach him a few more tricks. Anyways, so just by way of explanation for folks that are here about the bike ranch, I'll go ahead and open that hearing at the time that it comes up on the agenda. So those of you who came, if you want to speak, you're not going to be around on the 2nd. You'll at least have that opportunity. But due to the odd nature of this continuation, if you speak today, I'll still offer you another chance to speak at the hearing whenever it is heard. Okay? Just so everybody knows. Just to be generous with you all, because I think you show in your good nature by coming down here and being interested in commenting on this project. Very good. We got a number of presentations. The first one is the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association to the Pima County Finance and Risk Management Department. Supervisor Bronson, please.
I don't know that we need to move it, but I will since it's a presentation, I actually invite all my colleagues here if you want to come down with us. And we get, how many of you are here from finance? Oh, okay then. So who's holding down the ship? Well, at least get some of you up here, and we'll make the presentation down there. But of course, it's a budget hearing, so it's Okay, let's if we can get you down here. Oh, there's Michelle. There's Michelle. Okay. All right. And we got
here for you all if you want to come down.
And can you hear? Yeah, that works. Actually, you've received this award since 2013. Is that correct? Actually, 28 years in a row. That's pretty amazing. And it's a distinguished budget presentation, and I believe Senator McSally has recognized you in the congressional record. So, again, congratulations. But what is this? And for those who are policy wonks, Government Finance Officers Association has announced that Pima County, Arizona has received the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for its budget. The award represents a significant achievement by this entity. It reflects the commitment of the governing body and staff to meeting the highest principles of governmental budgeting. In order to receive the budget award, the entity had to satisfy nationally recognized guidelines for effective budget presentation. These guidelines are designed to assess how well an entity's budget serves as, number one, a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communications device. Budget documents must be rated proficient in all these 4 categories and in the 14 mandatory criteria within those categories to receive this award. So again, I want to congratulate, well, there were over 16,000 participants in the Budget Awards program. The most recent Budget Award recipients, along with their corresponding budget documents, are posted on the GFOA's website. And I know I ask all of you to Google it and look at that budget and look at all the amazing work. I think this year's was one of the best budgets I've seen since I've been on the board. So again, congratulations, and if you all want to, I'll let you say a few words about how you pulled it all off.
Basically, we pulled it all off because of all of these members of our team. I want to thank Bob Johnson, Patrick McGee, Mandy Armenta, the entire budget division and departmental analysis division, because without them, we wouldn't have received the award.
And you said 28 years? Yes. You need to say something, because I think you've been doing it for 28 years.
Well, I just want to say that I want to thank everybody in the budget and the departmental analysis division. And then I want to thank finance, because finance, works together. There's another probably, 140 people that helped us with the budget on top of the group here. And then, of course, the departments, they have to tell us what they need to do and ask us, and then we work with them on how to fund it. So it's a real process that involves everybody, and it just works out really well because everybody's really willing to help. Thank you.
No, thank you, and congratulations to you, all of you. Good job. You gotta. You're back there, okay. Yeah. Thank you. Congratulations again.
Okay, our next presentation proclamation is for Public Works Week in Pima County. This is offered by Keyboy the dog. No, I'm lying. Chair will move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion, objections. Hearing none, motion carries. Supervisor Bronson is going to make this presentation. If you're here from Public Works, please come forward. Thank you all for letting Carol Breckta come. She went to grade school with me many years ago, poor person. I'll never tell any stories about it. How you doing, Carol? Nice to see you.
Yeah, where was Carmine? Anna? Jackson?
All Saints.
All Saints?
It's true. It's part of the juvenile
She's the
court at
holder.
the time.
She's in charge. You can't stand behind there all the time. You got to come out and meet the public. All right. Whereas 2019 marks the 59th anniversary, 59th annual National Public Works Week, and this year's theme is "It Starts Here." And whereas infrastructure, mobility, growth, and innovation begin with public works facilities and services which sustain the health and well-being of the people of Pima County, and whereas our parks, roads, water courses, bridges, and public services keep us linked together, and our air and water quality, natural and cultural resources, waste management, and wastewater reclamation services keep us healthy, and our natural open space allow our community to sustainably grow and prosper. And whereas all the employees of Pima County government, the Public Works Department, and administration acknowledge that the tireless work that starts here helps to strengthen the bond that keeps our community connected. And whereas it is in the public interest of Pima County residents to gain knowledge, maintain interest, and understand the impact and importance of public works and public works programs in our daily lives, now therefore be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims the week of May 19th through May 25th, 2019 as Public Works Week in Pima County, and urges all Pima County citizens, business leaders, and civic organizations to learn about the benefits of providing and maintaining public works infrastructure, and to recognize the substantial and specialized contributions that our public works professionals make in sustaining and protecting our comfort, health, and well-being in support of quality of life, passed and adopted this 21st day of May 2019. And Carmine, since you're in charge of all these guides, you want to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you, Supervisor Bronson. Thank you, board members. Appreciate the acknowledgement. And really for the dedicated staff in Public Works, it's Public Works Day every single day. So these people work tirelessly on making improvements and maintaining and operating all of the systems and services that we rely on here in the community. So they're a dedicated bunch, and I'm endlessly thankful to them for all of their work. We have several of our local Arizona Public Works Association board members here, and I'd like to just give them an opportunity to say a few words as well.
Thank you, Carmine. The American Public Works Association works hard to bring public works out into the forefront for people so that you remember every day you drive on that road, you fill up that water bottle, you plug in that cell phone, you walk by that shady tree in the park, you drive safely over that wash with raging water in it. That's because they've been working every day for that event to happen. And you don't realize it until something's broken and you'd like it fixed. But everything you can do to support your public works community is only reinvesting in your economy, in your community, and in your healthy and safe future. So we really appreciate your support for Public Works Week. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations to all of you.
Thank you all. Yeah, you forgot about the picture. I'd hide too, Jackson. Okay, our next presentation is item number 7,
Move approval?
The Desert Haven Natural Resources Park Day. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Discussion, objections? Hearing none, motion carries. We're so happy to have Elizabeth Rodriguez and Maricruz Toscano, Amy Fernandez, Dante Ortega, Cassandra Correll, and Taki McNair from Utterback Middle School Unicorn Leadership Team. And they're here to help us do this proclamation. So if you all would come forward. Did I get everybody? Did I sort of get the names right? Takai? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make your name sound like a snack food. Everybody loves those Takis, or at least a lot of people do.
Well, let me read the proclamation as this goes to the school, and we have a certificate for each one of you as well, okay? And this will explain why we're here this morning. Whereas Pima County is building a new natural resources park at 36th Street and Keno Parkway that will feature an open desert place, ramadas, picnic tables, walking trails, and wildlife drinkers to attract birds and other animals. And whereas District 2 Supervisor Ramon Valadez asked neighborhood schools and programs, including Holiday Magnet Elementary School, Utterback Magnet Middle School, Pueblo Gardens K-8 School, the Holmes Tuttle Boys and Girls Club Clubhouse at Pueblo Gardens Park, and Youth Works Charter High School to get involved by submitting names for the park. And whereas the submitted names were received and shared via social media, with the most popular name being Desert Haven Natural Resources Park, submitted by the Unicorn Leadership Team at Utterback Magnet Middle School, which includes students Elizabeth Rodriguez, Mary Cruz Toscano, Amy Fernandez, Dante Ortega, Cassandra Correll, Takai, thank you, McNair. I apparently wasn't paying attention. Sorry, Richard. Whereas the Pima County Board of Supervisors approved the winning name at its April 16th meeting on the recommendation of the County Parks Commission, and whereas the Board of Supervisors wishes to express its sincere appreciation to all of the neighborhood schools and community groups for their enthusiastic participation in this naming contest, particularly to the staff and student leaders at Utterback for their submission of the winning name, Desert Haven Natural Resources Park. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Pima County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaims Tuesday, May 21st, 2019 to be Desert Haven Natural Resources Park, passed and adopted this 21st day of May 2019. So congratulations. This was actually a really fun idea because we had the park that we're getting ready to start completing and should be completed sometime next year. But obviously we wanted a really kind of creative way of getting people involved in naming the park. So that's how we came up with, let's have students come up with names. And what we did, not only did we share it on social media, we actually took the top 5 names, put them on a poll, and Desert Haven won that poll, which was then submitted to the Parks Commission. So congratulations to you all, and see that you can make a really positive impact in your community. And every time you drive by there, you're going to say, hey, I named that park. And you did, okay? So let me give the certificates here. Cassandra, here you go. Maricruz. Elizabeth. Thank you. You're welcome. Amy. Dante. And Takai. Thank you. All right, and then who gets to say a few words? The principal. Yes. Here you go.
Thank you, everyone, for allowing us to be here. Thank you so much for this honor. These are actually really some of our outstanding students at Utterback Middle School. They are all graduating on Thursday, promoting on Thursday, all with honors, all with honors. They were just recently recognized, all of them actually, at a district celebration for their high GPAs and excellent community service. They are really an awesome group. This actually is they created their own group. They went to a ceremony, what was it, a field trip to a college and career ready, peace meeting, and they came away from that so encouraged and so inspired that they wanted to continue to make a difference as a collective, and so they formed the Unicorn Leadership and approached me if they could form. And they have been such an outstanding group of students. They do tours. They're just incredible. And this is just a sampling of what Utterback has to offer. We are really a proud campus. I am so proud. I'm a first-year principal at Utterback. And we've been able to really make some incredible gains this year. So thank you to all board members. Thank you so much for all of your support. And thank you. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is my incredible assistant principal, Mr. Rodriguez.
Oh, yeah. Good morning. Just like Ms. Sanders was saying, I just wanted to reiterate that these are the best and brightest that Utterback has to offer, and we have a really good campus with a great student body that really cares about their community and doing good in the world.
Very nice to have such a distinguished group of students here with us today. Thank you guys for making the effort to come down here. Okay, moving right along here on addendum number 1, we have another presentation proclamation for the 40-year anniversary of the Pima County Court-Appointed Special Advocate Program.
Move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Supervisor Christie is going to make this presentation today. Is that another one?
I'm honored to present this proclamation on behalf of Pima County. Whereas Pima County recognizes that the problem of child abuse and neglect affects every segment of our community, and whereas every child within Pima County deserves a safe, permanent, and nurturing home, and whereas the court-appointed special advocate, CASA, program of Pima County recruits, trains, supports, and supervises community volunteers as advocates for abused and neglected children who have been removed from their homes, and whereas more than 4,000 court-appointed special advocates have served in the best interest of and devoted countless hours to providing care for thousands of children who have found themselves through no fault of their own in the Pima County Juvenile Court system. And whereas court-appointed special advocates serve as a consistent figure in children's lives until they achieve permanency in safe homes with loving families, and whereas in 2019 we honor the organization and, most importantly, the court-appointed special advocates themselves for 40 years of tireless work on behalf of our most vulnerable population, our children who experience abuse and neglect. Now therefore be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims 2019 to be the 40-year anniversary of the Pima County Court-Appointed Special Advocate Program, and encourages all residents to recognize the impact that one positive adult relationship can have on the life of a child through the support of CASA in Pima County, as it encourages the well-being of children and families by promoting a safe and healthy environment, and seeks for all children to grow and thrive while strengthening the community in which we live. Passed and adopted this 21st day of May, 2019. Congratulations.
By default, I will speak. I just want to thank everybody. My name is Kathleen Quigley. I'm the presiding judge at Juvenile Court, and I want to thank all those that are here. These group of women and men support the CASA program in Pima County and have created a thriving program. We have over 200 volunteers in Pima County who serve children throughout our county. You should know that CASA was started 41 years ago. Pima County had the second CASA program in the United States. This county is amazing in terms of its ability to see what is needed and what is important for those that we serve and live in our communities. And you should be proud of being in this county and having those volunteers serve our children. Thank you.
Keep moving us around.
Okay, that concludes our presentations. Hello, Judge. That concludes our presentations today. So it's on to everybody's favorite carnival, call to the public. Thank you all for coming out to speak to us today. And, once more, we're going to ask people not to be vulgar. Please don't be shouting out from the audience. That's another problem. And also, please be thoughtful about the people around you and respect them while they're speaking as well. Otherwise, you'll be asked to leave. We have about 15 cards that have been submitted. We'll try and get to through those in an hour. So I'd ask everybody to please be succinct in their comments, and we'll be able to get through this thing. And our first speaker today is going to be Steve Diamond. Mr. Diamond, if you'd please come forward. Give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to address the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Steve Diamond. At the last meeting, I said that if you didn't want a repeat of 2018's shenanigans, you'd better make sure that the conditions attached to approving the Stone Garden grant were unambiguous and ironclad. Well, it's probably not too late for that, but I urge you to act soon, today if possible, because the ones you approved last week are anything but. There are a number of potential loopholes that must be plugged by an explicit resolution to amend the conditions. First, Condition B must state unambiguously that the additional $200,000 is to be reallocated from the overtime plus fringe portion of the grant. As written, it could be read to say that it comes from the indirect cost portion. Second, it must be clear that if for any reason the Condition B reallocation doesn't happen, the entire grant is automatically rejected. That means approvals from AZDOHS plus 3 federal agencies as stated in IB 436. That means that AZDOHS actually does release the funds and that Pima County is actually able to spend them for humanitarian purposes. If anything in that fragile chain fails, the entire grant must be rejected before any of it's spent. Third, condition C, subsection C, which makes the grant contingent on the sheriff providing requested data to the CLEP-C satisfactorily, must be amended to clearly define what satisfactorily means. To whose satisfaction? Determined how? I suggest that both the CLEP-C and this board must say they're satisfied by majority votes of each, and they must say so within 30 days after each tranche of data is provided by the sheriff. Otherwise, the entire grant is immediately canceled. Fourth, it must be unambiguously the will of this board that the PCSD is not free to spend 1 penny of this grant money or to spend 1 penny that would later be reimbursed from the grant unless and until the board votes again to affirm that all the conditions have been met. I know Chairman Elias told this to Sheriff Napier in last week's budget hearing, but if I'm correct, that doesn't have the force of a resolution from the board. You should amend the conditions to include that. Finally, condition D must be given teeth. What's the point of having Sheriff Napier reaffirm in writing that he will or won't do anything? You've seen how he operates. Instruct the CLEP-C and the GMI to create a monitoring process to ensure that those requirements are met, and back it up with an automatic cancellation of the grant if you ever discover that they aren't. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Diamond. Appreciate you being here. Our next speaker is going to be John Denker. Mr. Denker, if you'd come forward, please. You have 3 minutes to address the board, and please give us your name for the record. Thank you again for your patience.
Yes, I'm John Denker. I'd like to briefly speak to the Strong Start initiative. There's a Chinese proverb that says, if you're planning for 1 year, plant rice. If you're planning for 10 years, plant trees. If you're planning for 100 years, educate the children. Now this Strong Start thing would put Pima County in a leadership position. We saw, 41 years ago, Pima County was out front with the advocate program. So I think it would be in character to do that. I'd like to segue, different topic, taking up where Steve left off. Item D in the resolution from last time said, this is capital D here, the sheriff affirms in writing, blah, 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 and to not deploy Pima County law enforcement to personnel to Border Patrol checkpoints for the purpose of performing protection stops if requested by Border Patrol. That's what we call a suspiciously specific denial. There's a whole page of jokes on that on TV tropes that come on. Well, maybe not. Anyway, take my word for it. There's actually about a dozen pages of jokes on that specific. I'm trying to make a process argument here. Never mind the self-defeating politics, never mind the self-defeating financial angles, never mind the self-defeating public safety angles. No matter what you're doing, this is the wrong way to do it. As Steve points out, there's a lack of specificity. I never took any MBA classes. I've taught a couple, but one of the principles is say what you mean and mean what you say. And the language that was moved last week doesn't do that. It's ambiguous, and we've seen in previous years that wise guys will exploit ambiguities like that. So one of the principles is say what you mean what you say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Denker. Appreciate you being here. Okay, our next speaker is going to be Penelope Jacks. Ms. Jacks, if you'd come forward, give us your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to address the board. And I believe it was your birthday yesterday, so happy birthday.
No, not till June.
Not till June? I was wrong again, folks.
But thank you anyway.
Somehow I'm sure the board's not surprised. Please, go ahead.
My name is Penelope Jacks. I live at 2303 East Adams Street in Tucson. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for letting me speak. Last week, Dr. Millward read a list of organizations and individuals who support the Pima County Preschool Investment Program, and it took up almost his whole 3 minutes. I compiled the list, and I omitted to include the United Food and Commercial Workers Local 99, who are our first and best allies, so I just didn't want to miss them. But even as I was hearing him read them, I was astounded by the breadth and variety of the people on it. Chairman Elias remarked that it's rare to hear Palf and Salk in one list, and much less himself and the sheriff. But that was only the beginning, honestly. On that list, we heard names of organizations and people who are both urban and rural, business and labor, public and non-public agencies and organizations, preschools, K-12, U of A, religious and secular groups, health providers, law enforcement, wildly different media outlets, and even political rivals. Yes, there was an election in our first attempt to fund early childhood education, and it did fail. But now, the strongest opponents from that one are the strongest voices for yes this time. Things have really changed. The community has changed. And it seems like a miracle, but it's really the result of months and months of hard, sometimes very contentious work around this issue. And with that work, we created a proposal that all those organizations can stand behind. And we committed that we would all stand proudly behind it. And in those negotiations, in that process, nobody got everything they wanted. I know that I didn't. I would have liked it to be universal, but everybody had to give. But in agreeing to provide the kids with Pima County with high-quality early education, we just decided it's too important to wait for someone else to do it, and it's too important to let our differences stand in the way. So the current PCIP proposal is a product of our many, many perspectives and our collective commitment to Pima County's children. You all deal with a lot of very divisive and contentious issues, and I don't envy your job. Fortunately for you and for us, PCIP is just the opposite. It's a proposal that has unified numerous voices in a way that really I haven't seen in Pima County in a long, long time. It speaks volumes for Pima County that when it comes to our kids and our prosperity, we speak with one voice. Please support high-quality early education for our children and join your voices to that chorus. Please fund PCPIP. Thank you.
Thank you, Penelope. Appreciate it. Our next speaker is Dr. Ravi Gravois Shah. Did I get it right? Almost? Gravois. I'm sorry, Ravi. Thank you so much for being here. Please give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to address the Board of Supervisors.
Good morning, Chairman, Supervisors. My name is Ravi Gravois Shah, and I'm a family physician here in Pima County. I'm speaking on behalf of myself in favor of early childhood education. Surprisingly, for a physician, I'm not going to stand here with all the evidence and data and research. You've heard the arguments already. We do know that the American Academy of Pediatricians, our nation's leading body representing over 45,000 board-certified pediatricians around the country, has looked at all the data and research and concluded, and I quote, "High-quality early education improves physical and cognitive outcomes for children and enhanced school readiness." Instead, I stand before you as a community physician to advocate on behalf of my patients. As a physician, I care for our counties, some of our county's most vulnerable families. The children of white working class struggling to make ends meet, los hijos de inmigrantes de Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, y otros países, the daughters of refugee families from Africa and the Middle East. Time and time again in my clinic, I see kids and I hear stories how they're struggling in schools. I see many kids from all backgrounds who are struggling with when they enter elementary school. They struggle in kindergarten, first and second grade, unprepared. I see this unpreparedness snowball into struggles through elementary school, middle school, high school, and as they launch into early adulthood. We know that early childhood education isn't a silver bullet. It won't solve all of our problems, but it is a vital tool in our arsenal to fight inequities in academic achievement and success. I went into medicine to care for some of our most vulnerable families in my community. I believe that each and every one of you up here went into public service to do the same thing. Early childhood education is low-hanging fruit, especially the pilot funds before us today. And we know it will make an important impact in the lives of Tucson and Pima County's most vulnerable families, and I encourage you to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is going to be Molly McCassin. Molly, please come forward, and appreciate you being here. You know the rules, 3 minutes, and give us your name. And I just remind everybody, Molly was the Ward 6 City Council member for
Thank you, Chairman.
for many
Lees.
years here in
My name
Tucson.
is Molly McCassin. I'm a Pima County resident. And good morning to you all, Chairman Elias, the board, Mr. Huckleberry, staff, and I'd like the people who are here in support of People for a Safer Pima County just to raise their hand for a second or stand. It's a small but mighty group of us, and I want to thank them all, and I want to thank you all for hearing us out. I'm here to remind you that on April 2nd, a small group of us turned in letters with over 500 signatures requesting that the board hold a public hearing on the Pima County Fairgrounds gun show. Along with the letter, we requested answers to public safety issues that are really important concerning the selling of incredible numbers of weapons, AR-15s included, without any background checks on public property. And of course, we all understand the state has preempted us on being able to do anything about those private sales, so I don't bring that here as an issue. But only Chairman Elias's office has acknowledged the serious community problem. Otherwise, it appears that neither the board nor the Southwest Fair Commission has any control over public safety at gun shows. That's how it appears to us in the community. I'm here to request that the county administrator's office please answer the submitted questions in the next 2 weeks. Finally, it came to my attention last week that a few supervisors did not understand that as many as 50% of the buyers at the fairground gun show have no background checks. This is according to ATF. The range is from 25% to 50%. The reason no one knows for sure is we're prohibited from finding out that information by federal laws. So we are blocked in every way from addressing this community safety issue. So anyway, I want to show you really quickly a picture. I don't know how you do this.
Just put it right there on top of that little star right there.
The star? Okay.
It's like magic. It just makes it appear.
There we go, magic. I don't know if you can see that. It's not blown up very much.
We'll make it blown up in just a second there.
This picture over on the right says private sale, no sales tax, no background check, Arizona ID only, Arizona ID required, all sales final. These are signs posted at multiple vendors on public property that Pima County owns at the fairground gun shows. I'm not here to talk about us and them, you and me. I'm not here for any of that. I'm here to talk about our community, our children, our future, our safety.
Ms. McCassin,
Thank
you've
you.
expended your time.
Thank
I'm
you so
sorry.
much for your time.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is going to be Elliot Glicksman. Thank you for being here, Mr. Glicksman. I really appreciate your time.
Thank
if
you,
you'd
board
give us 3 minutes and your name for the record.
Elliot Glicksman. I am the past president and current board member of Homicide Survivors, Inc., which provides advocacy, financial assistance, and therapeutic support for families who've been victims of homicides. I'm not here as a board member today. I tell you that as my background. I understand your limits. Because of what the state government has preempted, Bisbee can't even get rid of plastic bags if they want to. TPD can't get rid of guns that they seize from criminals if they want to. But the state hasn't said you have to have gun shows on county property. And I will tell you, if you have not been to a gun show, you need to go. Because what these are, here you have these federally licensed firearms dealers who do background checks and do things right. And no one wants guns to get into the hands of criminals. And then you have the private sellers. And who goes to the private sellers? The people who can't get a gun from the federally licensed dealers. And these things become swap meets for terrorists and for criminals. And the fact is, I know you can say, well, you know what? They're gonna get guns anyway. They'll get guns anyway. Well, you know, why not have it? Why have rules against murder? People are gonna kill anyway. Why have rules against rape? People are raping anyway. Why are we having, the rapists aren't gonna follow those rules. The fact is, you've got this big piece of property. We've got an issue in this country of domestic terrorists. And where they go is to the Pima County Fairground that you own. And they know this is going to be a huge bazaar, a huge swap meet. So why can't the county just take a stand and say, you know what? We don't have to have gun shows on our property. We don't have to hold our property out to be used this way. Can we make it a little difficult, a little harder than having a big meeting ground? But please go to a swap meet and see. That's all the time I need. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elliot. Our next speaker is going to be Brenda Wexler. Ms. Wexler, if you'd come forward, you know the routine. Your name for the record, and
Hi,
then
Brenda
3
Wexler.
minutes, please.
Yeah, we've met before. I will be brief. I want to talk to the people who voted yes on Stone Garden to say you voted for racial profiling. And we all know that because the president pardoned Arpaio after he was convicted for racial profiling. So that's it, right? It's okay. That's your vote, and you have to live with it. And the other thing I want to say is I just want to say thank you to Mr. Elias. He was so respectful in outlining all the reasons that he voted against racial profiling. And I want to say in our crib, in our hood, in my culture, we would grant you the highest respect by calling you a mensch, which is a human being. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is going to be Jeremy Lasher. Mr. Lasher, if you'd come forward, please. Give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Jeremy Lasher. Thank you, Chairman, Supervisors. I am one of 3 applicants for the constable position in Justice District 8. I applied for that position because I feel that I am the best person to help serve our community when people are struggling and facing things like evictions and orders of protection. They need somebody who understands where they come from and what they are facing on a day-to-day time frame to understand what they're going through that day. When I was 21 years old, I was working 2 full-time jobs. I wasn't sleeping very much and crashed my vehicle, ended up towing that vehicle. Was looking for a new job, and a friend of mine was an escort here in Pima County. They told me I would be good at that job, and so for the next 7 months, I worked in Pima County as an escort. I was arrested by Tucson Police Department and charged with a misdemeanor crime called massage without a license. Ignorance of the law is no excuse for committing a crime, but it is a pretty good educator, and it's helped me to take my experience from that position and start advocacy and organization throughout our community and throughout the country on union issues, environmental issues, on healthcare, and to help with annexation efforts here in the Tucson and help try and improve our community. I came to you because I don't like rumors or things being in shadow, and I want to look you each in the eye and tell you that I don't believe the misdemeanor crime I had at 21 years old is a detriment to this position or to this county. I think it helped inform me to know what people go through, the decisions they have to make when they're faced with economic hardships, when they don't know how they're going to keep their house, their vehicle, or where their next meal is coming from. I think that's an asset to somebody who is going to be constable in an area that is plagued by economic uncertainty and has some of the highest evictions in the county. If the political realities are that you cannot appoint me to this position, I completely understand and respect that. But I do think that I would be the best candidate. There are 3 people who are running for this position. Everybody has faults. We're human beings. My faults are out in the public, and I hope that helps you make your decision later on in this proceedings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is going to be Clarence Book. Mr. Book, thank you for being here, and thank you for being patient today. Please come forward and give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to address the Board of Supervisors.
Yes, I'm Clarence Book, president of Meadowbrook HOA, and I'm here to discuss this development plan, which we have been in conference with members of the Pima County Board. We have a lot of our residents, especially in the area that development is going to occur, are adamantly opposed to this development. However, understanding that, we have worked with the Pima County representatives to make limitations on what we would like to see there. And I would like this board to really take a look at those limitations and try to adhere to them so that we don't have problems with traffic congestion. That buffer also serves as a way of keeping noise down from River Road, which is very busy, and also from flooding of the Rito River. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your time here. Our next speaker is going to be Fran Krakow. Thank you for being here, Ms. Krakow. Excuse me. And please come forward. Thank you for your patience. And we'll give you 3 minutes to speak if you give us your name for the record.
My name is Fran Krakow, and I just retired last year as a teacher from TUSD, and my last job was in the preschools, which I loved and is needed. But I'm here to speak about guns, because this is a true story. I started teaching in 1973. So last year, when I retired, it was my 45th year of teaching. 1973, I was a brand new teacher, 2nd grade in Brooklyn, New York. One of my students brought in a gun for show and tell. Luckily, we met our students in the schoolyard, and he had already shown the gun that was in his backpack to his friends. So as we're walking up the steps to my classroom, the children behind me were telling me that he had a gun. So I opened my desk drawer when we got into the classroom. I called him up to my desk, and I said, please put the gun in my drawer. And with that, he went back, got his backpack, took the gun, and put it into the drawer. I closed the drawer. I called the principal. The principal came up, and he was a little guy who kept a lot of candy in his pockets for the bad kids. And I opened my drawer, and his response was, I don't know. I've never seen a gun before. He didn't say it. He just showed me that he didn't know what that was. He said, I'm going to call the custodian. Up comes the custodian, who happened to be a fireman, because we were still using coal back then. So we had to have a fireman on the premises to stoke coal. And he had one thumb missing. He was 6'5". I opened my drawer, and he says to me, yep, that's a gun. I close the drawer. The police come. The mother comes. And that was the end of the story, thank God. Because Mom kept that gun, which was illegal, under her bed. She was a single mother. So when she wasn't looking, he knew where it was. he put it in his backpack. And about 30 years later, I'm trying to think, why did he bring the gun to school? And then I realized it was show and tell. That was the day I told the kids, you have to bring something interesting. Don't bring a pet rock. Don't bring whatever. Bring something interesting. So he listened, and he brought something interesting. And here I am,
Ms.
46
Krakow, you've
years
expended your
later,
time. Please
still
complete your
remembering that show and tell. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that story. It was a different time. Very sad. Chris King, you're our next speaker. Please come forward, sir. Give us your name. You have 3 minutes.
Morning, Supervisors. I'm Chris King, combat veteran, resident, taxpayer, most importantly, a citizen. Last meeting, as with every other meeting, you announced that any disruptions would be met with removal from the boardroom. Not only did you show your hypocrisy, your blatant racism was on display. You sat idly by while supporters of open borders and those who supported the rejection of Operation Stone Garden grant make snide comments to the supporters. You even admonished little old me. The height of your hypocrisy and lack of sympathy and empathy to an angel grandmother was beyond reprehensible. The woman you ejected from this boardroom had her grandson murdered by an illegal alien. I now call for your censure, or a censure against you, Chairman Elias. If you care to remember, the reason I became politically involved here in this forum was because of you. You called for a censure of Supervisor Miller for utilizing her freedom of speech during her own time, in her own home, using her own computer. You, however, used your lawful authority to squelch the speech of a woman who was grieving. This alone shows how out of touch you are. We, the taxpayers, support our law enforcement. We, the taxpayers, support our first responders. Now you're looking to appoint a woman who's actively anti-law enforcement to a law enforcement position as a constable. This is purely stupid. Shifting gears. You recently approved $16 million for the roads in Rock and Key Ranch, a private enterprise. Now, the budget for that area, you're looking to approve today, but you're only looking to tax them $10. When do the average taxpayers get a deal like this? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. King. Appreciate you being here and appreciate your comments. Next speaker is going to be Keith Van Heineken. Mr. Van Heineken, please come forward. Give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes. Is Mr. King going to help you today, sir?
Yes, sir, I am. Good morning to all the assembled. I'm Chris King. I'm speaking for Mr. Keith Van Heineken. I stand before you today as a Republican, waiting for the fall of the Democrat Party forever.
Please continue, sir.
As a Republican, I stand for life. The Democrats, however, stand for infanticide. As a Republican, I stand for liberty. The Democrats, however, stand for the ghettos. As a Republican, I stand for the pursuit of happiness. The Democrats, however, stand for the open borders, kill America movement. So how is that long-term plan criminal malfeasance while in office perpetuated by the Democrat majority and Chuck Huckleberry treating everyone? How is our overpaid, incompetent county admin Chuck Huckleberry doing these days? Looks like he's missing. Didn't, what's his name, do an empty seat comparison to Obama? Sorry. What's a few billion in wasted Pima taxpayer dollars on non-essential county employees for other than vote buying and corruption? Fear not, as the Huckleberry hounds and the local media will cover up and propagandize for the corrupt and the stupid. So what's in the box? This is a history box full of despicable acts, as Richard Elias quietly called them. Things like mass rape, scalping, murder, selling babies into slavery, all the way to financially destroying Pima County and Tucson. Yes, that Elias family is just the nightmare that won't quit. Ask an Apache or a taxpayer. Sincerely, Keith Van Heineken.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Van Heineken. Appreciate your comments. Have a seat, please. Our next speaker is going to be Rachel Sedgwick. Ms. Sedgwick, thank you for being here. Thank you for being patient. You have 3 minutes to address the Board of Supervisors. If you please give us your name for the record.
Sure. My name is Rachel Sedgwick. Good morning, Board of Supervisors, Mr. Huckleberry. I sit on the TUSD School Board, excuse me, and I'm also running for Pima County Supervisor. I'm here in my own personal capacity to speak in favor of the Pima County Preschool Initiative. I was sad to read the article that you wrote, the op-ed, stating that the county has not been able to find the money. It seemed like you were, you noted that the budget is very complicated, and that's understandable. Maybe we can do a better job of making it a little bit more transparent, easier to understand exactly where the $2.5 billion go, including things like, weird tax breaks and things like that. Now, I believe that supporting the preschool initiative, I agree, that it's very important that the community has come together, but putting the responsibility to fund the initiative on other local government bodies or on the public schools is really not fair. TUSD is already doing everything we can to educate infants and preschoolers, despite that the state does not fund us. We are not permitted to be doing more, and we do everything we can. The voters turned down Prop 304, which was, I believe it was Prop 304, which was the initiative to have the city council pay for this preschool. We didn't want for this initiative to be only citywide. We wanted it to touch the entire county, which is why it's come now to the Pima County Board of Supervisors. If you agree, as you say you do, and you really believe that early childhood education is essentially important, then you'll find a way in the budget. I managed to find some extra funds that to me, I just started looking at these budget documents. Much of it is not very clear, as you say. There do seem to be extra funds, and I think that you should be able to find a way. After all, early childhood education is job development, and it's the #1 thing. It's very important for Pima County to start developing jobs, to start inviting big employers whose #1 complaint is that they don't have we don't have enough educated graduates. And the coming into school behind, of course, keeps a student behind for their entire career. And while the public schools are doing everything we can, including charter schools, the not-for-profit charter schools that you all have been supporting, I wish you would not support the for-profit charter schools at the same time, since we have different goals. But again, if you really believe the things that you wrote in the paper, then I believe that you will be able to find a way to fund this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sedgwick. I would like to correct the record, though, from what Ms. Sedgwick said. Pima County actually does have the money to fund the pilot program for early childhood development, as Mr. Huckleberry stated in his memo. Our next speaker is going to be, thank you. Our next speaker is going to be Christopher Cole. Mr. Cole, please come forward and give us your name for the record. You have 3 minutes, sir. We also need to have your name for the record.
Gee, why did I know that? Good morning, everybody. My name is Christopher Cole. I'm chair of the Pima County Libertarian Party. Last time I was up here speaking, I mentioned that I cannot find any authorization for Mr. Huckleberry to be spending any money or using any county resources for I-11. I have not been able to do a lot of research on the subject, but if he is spending money on I-11 without authorization, is he breaking the Arizona Revised Statutes? I-11 is not wanted in its present form. The people of Averill Valley don't want it. The voters of Pima County don't want it. You don't want it. 2007-343, if I remember the resolution number correctly, is instructions to Mr. Huckleberry. You don't want I-11. Are those instructions legally binding? I don't know. But you've given Mr. Huckleberry the instructions, the sense of the board, if nothing else, and yet I-11 continues to be a drain on Pima County funds. Gee, are you setting yourselves up for some sort of downfall? I mean, you know, look at the trouble you had with Worldview. Are you setting yourself up for something similar with I-11? Please. There are better ways to do the improved traffic to Mexico. I-11 as the present front runner project is probably the worst of all of the options. Double-decking I-19 probably is cheaper, more efficient, and will do more than save just 2 minutes in traffic time. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Our next speaker is going to be R. Roy Johnson. Mr. Johnson? Okay, we'll move along. Next speaker is Dean Moreno. Mr. Moreno, please come forward. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your patience. You can give us your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to address the Board of Supervisors.
Good morning. Buenos días.
Buenos días.
My name is Frank Dean Moreno, and I own the property at 11050 East Tanque Verde Road, and they're putting a restaurant across from my business, which, as far as I'm concerned, it's okay. What I'm concerned about is the parking. If they have enough parking on their property, that's fine, but I'm worried about in the evenings when we do close, if they're gonna be coming, if they have that much business, which I hope they do, will they come and park across our street? That's all I'm concerned about mainly. I don't want them to, we don't wish them the best because it's so hard nowadays to start a business, any kind of business. It's really hard. So I just want to bring it to your attention that I'm just concerned about the parking, you know, after hours across the street because we're directly across from them. So that's the main thing I'm concerned about. It's just I hope they get an overflow, but if they get an overflow, I don't want to be coming on my property because I don't want to be responsible if somebody gets hurt or whatever. So that's my main concern.
Thank you very much,
Okay,
Mr.
you bet.
Moreno.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time.
Mhm.
Very good.
Gracias.
No por nada. Our next speaker is going to be Russell Valenzuela. Mr. Valenzuela, thank you for being here. Please give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to address the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you very much. My name is Russell Spivey Valenzuela, and I live behind the Cow Palace in Amado, Arizona. We are having, since October the 1st, Bell took over the insurance for disabled, for SMI patients and who are not SMI patients for COPE Community Services in Green Valley. Since this has been happening, our groups in Green Valley have
Could
gone.
you pull that microphone a little closer to you? I'm sorry, sir.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Okay. Our groups in Green Valley COPE community offices have gone from 30 people to 3 people because nobody's getting picked up anymore. It has turned into a nightmare. We've had 3 friends in Arivaca, I cannot say their names because it's HIPAA, have tried to commit suicide because they have not been to see their doctors for medications in the Green Valley area because the taxis never go to Arivaca anymore. They say they walk to the Arivaca resource office to meet the taxis and they never show up. This keeps happening everywhere we look. The reason why we are here is the people in Cerrito Heights, we have one woman from Cerrito Heights wanted me to ask this question. If the Diamond Center can bring their van down for the Pima, on Pima Road to pick up people to Gamble, why can't we get Vantran to come down to Amado and Cerrito Heights to pick us up? They go to Canoa Road, if they just come 2 more miles, they will be in Amato to pick up people. We have senior citizens in Amato that are paying $50 a week to ride the Nogales shuttle vans to go get groceries. This is how bad it's getting. So people in my neighborhood are asking if you guys please look into it to get the Vantran to come to Amato and to Cerrito Heights. The businesses in Amato said they'd be glad to sponsor it. And we have a lot of people from the resource office at the food bank saying that they will ride the Vantran if we can get it down there. I've seen the Vantran go over to the hospital in Green Valley, but they don't come past Canoa Ranch. The people, it's just been a nightmare. I've been left 4 times at Cope. The last time for me was 2 weeks ago. I was left there till 8 o'clock at night. They closed the building at 5 and I sit outside waiting for a taxi to pick me up. Copper Star discount cab never shows up on time. We call Bell does not. Bell says, yes, we said you cancel your appointment. Every time all of us at Cope get phone calls, they say we cancel our transportation. So there's another reason why people are not going to Cope anymore, because they don't know if they're going to get home. We had an 85-year-old lady from Arivaca sit out there till 11:30 at night until she finally called somebody from Arivaca to pick her up. She was there from 9 o'clock in the morning until 11. The staff cannot take anybody home because Bell won't allow it. So I'm asking you guys please to look into it and bring us the van. We really need it.
Thank you very much, sir. You've expended your time.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes call to the audience for today's meeting. And, you know, I was going to move to item 19 on the regular agenda on page 5, appointment of constable for Justice Precinct 8.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Valadez.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank all 3 candidates for applying, and at this time, I would like to move to appoint Kristen Landrum as the constable for Justice Precinct 8.
Second. Motion and a second. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Miller.
I'm very concerned about the appointment of Ms. Landrum as a constable. She sent in a letter to all of the supervisors' offices, and in there she states how during her time serving legal papers, the opportunity, if she's nominated or if she gets this position, to make positive interactions should not be squandered. I think she didn't really understand what this position is, which is serving eviction notices and also repossessing properties, that kind of thing. It shows that it could be a very dangerous situation if she believes that she's going to be a, quote, resource for education. And I think that it just shows her lack of understanding of what this job entails. I think it's going to be a kind of a dangerous position. You have to know how to use a gun. You have to know what kind of people you're approaching. And I've had friends who were constables, and there are some situations where it is not a very friendly environment. And she said that she is also genuinely interested in assisting people to seek protective orders to provide safety in chaotic life circumstances and against abusers, stalkers, and others who would cause harm. There is a code of conduct for constables. And in Canon 3, Part D of that code, it specifically states that constables shall not advise a particular course of action. They should not, and I'll quote it, they should not advise citizens whether to take a particular course of action or attempt to answer questions outside of their knowledge and experience. And also in the code, in the same section, it's a section titled Constables shall perform their duties impartially and diligently, and constables shall perform their duties without bias or prejudice. Ms. Landrum has served on the CLEPC Commission, and as we all know, that commission definitely demonstrated some significant bias, anti-law enforcement bias. And in Part B of Canon 3, it states this even more clearly. Constables shall perform their duties diligently without regard for political interests, public opinion, or fear of criticism or reprisal. Constables should make every reasonable effort to carry out their duties diligently and promptly as required by law. Constables shall not disclose any confidential information received in the course of official duties, except as required in the performance of those duties. And on and on. I could go on with several other comments regarding the letter that she wrote to the Board of Supervisors. And I'm very concerned about the fact that she doesn't have this kind of experience, that she doesn't have this ability to remove bias from decision-making process that has not been demonstrated on the CLEP-C Commission. Justice needs to be blind, and I can't imagine Ms. Landrum carrying out any justice in such a way. So I am going to object to Ms. Landrum being appointed.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Christie.
I share in the concerns amplified by Supervisor Miller, particularly the candidate served as chairman of the CLEP-C and in numerous occasions spoke against law enforcement, against our sheriff, against the law enforcement community in general. And my concern is for someone to take a position as constable requires a belief in the fundamental values of upholding the law. And her continual mischaracterizations of the sheriff and Sheriff Napier, of the law enforcement community in general, shows to me a disregard for the foundations and the principles of which she's aspiring to, and consequently, I will be objecting to her nomination as well.
Supervisor Valadez, I'll let you go ahead and speak. I have some comments to make as well.
Mr. Chairman, you know, since the time that we first considered Stoughton Garden, I've gotten to know Miss Landrum, and I will tell you, first of all, you need to know that she comes from a law enforcement family. So a bias against law enforcement,
not true at all.
I don't know that I would agree with that. Now, do she and the sheriff always agree? No. But I believe as Americans, last I checked, that's a constitutional right. In truth, Ms. Landrum is somebody who, first of all, I mean, she's been chair of the CLEP-C for what, 3 meetings now? 2-3 meetings. So she hasn't been the chairman since its inception, but rather short term since she was appointed to that position. But in truth, I have found her to be somebody who is very deliberative, who does take in facts, who, you know, whether or not you agree or disagree with her, you can have a very rational, logical conversation, which I can appreciate. I think this is actually, or I think she's going to be a very good constable, and obviously part of what she's going to have to go through is some of the learning some of the edicts and some of the topics that we talked about on this dais a few moments ago. But frankly, I think the character that she possesses and the integrity that she's displayed both away from this room and even in this room indicate to me that she is an asset, and I look forward to having her as a constable.
Thank you. I would also comment that providing information and education to folks who are being served eviction notices is not out of the realm of what's important. And in fact, it's appropriate. And anybody who knows anything about the foreclosure crisis and what happened with tenants who were evicted from homes that they were renting and up to date on their home, on their rent, and then being evicted because that house was being foreclosed upon, knows that these are very difficult circumstances that require at least making sure that people know what alternatives are available to them when they're not even aware that they're being evicted because they paid their rent in full. I think Ms. Landrum has shown a lot of dignity as a member of the CLEPSI, and I think the attacks, the continued attacks on CLEPSI are unfounded and irrational. And so I think it's very sad that we can't accept the fact that we have to be critical of any facet of government. And that does not mean we're disloyal. That does not mean that we're uncaring. That does not mean that we're not supportive. I know for a fact that Ms. Landrum is supportive of law enforcement in every way. And also, I spoke to her specifically about her political activities, because that is a concern. She stated to me that she was very well to cease those activities. And I admire her for being open and honest about it. Any other comments from board members? If not, roll call.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Christie?
No.
Supervisor Miller?
No.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Aye. Motion carries 3-2. Congratulations, Ms. Landrum. Now we'll go on, and what we're going to do, you want to take a break? All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back at the sound of the gavel, and we'll do the budget. Thank you for coming to order. I'd like to call back to order the May 21, 2019 meeting of the Pima County Board of Supervisors. I'd like to correct one of my statements in the last hearing about Ms. Randall and, Ms. Landrum and her political participation. Obviously, I understand that the position of constable is a partisan political position, so she's certainly welcome to espouse her political beliefs in that vein. I was referring to some of her other activities in advocating for issues surrounding the county and some of the issues that come before the Board of Supervisors. Just as a point of clarification. I was also unaware that our lawyers need to get on with some business quickly, so I'm going to entertain a motion to move into executive session at this point. We have a motion and a second to move into executive session. Discussion, objections, hearing none. We'll be back in a very short amount of time. It should be very quick. Thank you, and welcome back to the May 21st, 2019 meeting of the Pima County Board of Supervisors. We've been in an executive session. Item 2 on the addendum. It's a pleasure of the board. Oh, I should say, council, please.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, executive session item 2 on the addendum involves Terrence Bressie versus Pima County Board of Supervisors et al., U.S. District Court case number 18 CV 186 DCB. County Attorney's Office recommends proceeding as discussed in executive session.
Move the county attorney's recommendation.
Second.
Motion and a second to proceed as discussed in executive session. Any discussion? Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. We're going to move quickly to the tentative budget hearings. And the Board of Supervisors sitting as other boards. First consideration, this is on page 3 of the regular agenda. The Flood Control District Board, item 10. This is a hearing, review, and adoption of the Flood Control District tentative budget for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Valadez.
If there's no one that would like to speak on the item, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on item number 10 under Flood Control District Board and adopt the Flood Control District tentative budget for fiscal year 2019-2020 and at $16,914,213 for an effective rate of 0.3335.
A motion and a second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Christie?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We're on to Improvement District Board, item 11. Review and adoption of the following County Improvement District tentative budgets for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Valadez.
If there's no one here to speak on the item, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing for item number 11 and approve the budgets for the improvement districts as listed on the agenda.
Second. Motion and a second. Discussion. Roll call.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Christie?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We're on to item 12, the Library District Board.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
If there's no one here to speak on the item, I move that we close the public hearing and approve item number 12, the adoption of the Library District tentative budget for the next fiscal year, and it will be $43,111,317, an effective rate of 0.5353.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the Library District Board, the Library District budget for 2020, 19-20.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Miller.
I just had a question, and I assume this is a statutory issue. Is the net assessed value is different for the library district than it is for the flood district? I just haven't had an opportunity to.
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, the library district as well as the county primary contains both what we call the real property and personal property. In the flood control district, it's only real property.
You.
Any other comments? If not, roll call, please.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Christie?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We're on to Rocking K South Community Facilities District Board, item 13. Review and adoption of the Rocking K South Community Facilities District tentative budget for fiscal year 2019-20.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Valadez.
I move that we close the public hearing and approve item number 13, the Rocking K South Community Facilities District Board for fiscal year 2019-20.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Christie?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. We're on to the Stadium District Board. Item 14,
Mr. Chair-
review and adoption of the Stadium District tentative budget for fiscal year 2019-20. Supervisor Valadez.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we, if there's nobody here to speak on the item, I move that we close the public hearing and approve item number 14, the adoption of the Stadium District tentative budget for fiscal year 2019-20 in the amount of $9,071,755.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Christie?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. We're on to Board of Supervisors, sitting as the Board of Supervisors, and this is item 15, which is the review and adoption of the tentative county budget for fiscal year 2019-20.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Valadez.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no one here to speak on the item, I move that we close the public hearing and approve or adopt the tentative budget for fiscal year 2019-2020 with the addition of 1 cent for those employees under $45,000 a year to be, or excuse me.
1%.
1%, I'm sorry. Percent, cent, it's per. 1% more on beginning in January to add to make it a total 2% then.
Beginning in January?
Yes, that's when we're set to do it at this point. And then that we also bring our employees up to minimum wage, stated in Mr. Huckleberry's memo as well.
And that's not, will that affect the overall expenditure?
It will not.
Thank you.
Mr. Huckleberry, could you answer that question, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, what I am assuming is that you're not adjusting the tax rate, you are basically adjusting the ending fund balance in both of those items.
That's correct.
That is
I
correct.
believe. Okay. And so this takes care of the issue that we had with the Office of the Clerk of the Superior Court?
It does.
Very good.
And
Right,
so-
Mr. Huckleberry?
And so so we've got the numbers, the total budget is $1,310,817,540 for a rate of $5.5584.
Second.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Miller?
I had a few questions on
Please.
this. I got all the detail that Mr. Huckleberry sent back after the questions in the budget sessions. And one question is, when were the salary adjustments made for the corrections officers? Was that in 17 or 18?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, that was in mid-year of this fiscal year.
Okay, so it was 18.
Yes.
So it's interesting that the turnover dropped from 17 to 18 even before that happened. So that was just an observation. And then are we expecting a significant growth in our head count this year? And I mean in terms of hiring for the vacancies that we have?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, as you looked at our list, we got 1,000 vacant positions, and typically if you then looked at our attrition rates, our attrition rates run from 12 to 15% for the total county. And, that attrition rate really is about 700 plus of those positions. And so we're in a continuous process of basically hiring and restaffing individuals. I think that what you will see is that it will become a little more difficult to hire employees simply because of the tight labor market that exists in the private sector. So, I don't think we've, if you look back at that 3 years of attrition, you saw basically it was lower in the early years and it's creeping up in these years, and it's because of the tight labor market in the private sector.
And have we considered, I know we have heard over and over about how some of these vacancies, the amount of money that is for for the requisition is not enough. Have we considered combining some of those so that we're more competitive to be able to hire these folks?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, the area that we've been looking at is this. Typically, Human Resources will conduct some salary surveys of the positions that we're having the hardest and most difficult time of attracting, and we'll make range adjustments in mid-year, which simply means bring up those ranges so that the hiring levels at the bottom level can more effectively compete with the private sector. So we do that continuously throughout the year. And I would think that we're going to begin to see that for example, I think Supervisor Miller used the correction officers, and if you looked at their attrition rate, it was as high as 20%, which was almost top in the county.
Right.
Simply through those salary adjustments and creating trainee positions, we now are getting a lot of very significant applications coming from state correction officers wanting to transfer laterally to our organization. What that will do is obviously fill those vacant positions, but more importantly, significantly reduce the overtime and the stress that our correction officers are under.
And then I assume the training is probably a lot less cost if we're
Yes, it is.
able to do that, because they've been doing that to us with the sheriff's deputies. And regarding the early childhood education, you sent out in the memo a summary of first things first. And it's funded off tobacco tax. And what's interesting to me is they have I guess a 400 million roughly right now, and their annual operating costs are about 129 million, but they want to keep this fund balance really high so that they can afford to continue funding the operations. Well, why? I mean, this is just a comment on this, but isn't the whole purpose of this money is to go to early childhood education instead of funding a bureaucracy? And I think, you know, someone said earlier that it's not the responsibility of the state or TUSD. I agree wholeheartedly with your memorandum that everyone needs to be on board with this. This can't be funded by county taxpayers, in my opinion. We've got enough on our plate, and we're not experts at education, and that's not our role. So that's just a comment on that. The transportation impact fees, I guess you said we have a balance of 51 million in there right now. I'd like to get a schedule of the various projects that are scheduled for those impact fees by area, by the benefit areas. Do we have that?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, it's hard to find. It's in the attachment, the very last page. You got to look down to in the subject areas, and so they list. It's not clear. I mean, you've got to. They're there, and they're kind of over-programmed, but at least it gives you a good idea what projects will be targeted for the impact fees.
That's in the May 20th memorandum?
Yes, it's the
Okay.
very last page under attachment E.
Okay.
But I admit, I had to look myself for it.
Okay. I did not see that.
Yeah,
and I
right.
read it. And then you talked about, we discussed the expenditure limitation the other day, and we have these, we're going to be issuing about 45 million more in certificates of participation this year. I guess getting into the balancing act with the wastewater, because we have 100+ million in that fund right now that we cannot pay off our debt because we'd be in violation of the expenditure limitation, and we're going to end up at the end of this fiscal year, according to your report, is that we're going to end up right about 100+ million again. And I know that part of it is that we have these outstanding certificates of participation, and that's a concern that we're not paying off that debt as quickly as we could by continuing to issue these COPs. And the other question is, what is the total amount of outstanding debt that we have left in wastewater? And I probably missed that. I just did not see that anywhere.
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, we have the list in there, and I think, yeah, the $102 or $104 million fund balance in the wastewater does look excessive. Part of the difficulty is that 20 million of that is set aside for this emergency fund, that in fact, if we have another sewer collapse, you know, it's part of those rate covenants that we've entered into for the wastewater utility. So there's 20 into that. In addition, I think we have to hold about $35 million into basically as a reserve, and it can only be released as we actually pay off the bonds. And so we got this cash sitting over here. That actually is another covenant that says that we can't release that until we pay the debt off on those. So we can give you a breakdown of what we call spendable and unspendable fund balance in the wastewater utility. But you're going to find that, like, for example, the $20 million emergency reserve fund, that's spendable. This $35 million or so is unspendable because you can't release it until you retire the specific debt instruments that were issued for the overall program.
And that is not for all debt, that's for part of them, or, okay, so
Yeah,
that
it's kind
this
of a
could.
reserve, yeah.
Okay,
And
so this could be released to pay off the final balance
The
kind of thing?
moment that we're paying off a chunk, and then they release 10 million, then we just put that back in the payoff. And so our plan is to accelerate, and what we've been doing, the payoff of the wastewater debt. We're going to continue to do that. The only reason we're even talking, and I think if you look at Michelle Campaign's table she gave terms of some of these COPs that were issued in different time periods. And there's some 2-year ones, you'll see a 10-year one, but they're all pretty short term. The ones that we know are coming up are all going to be that 3-year term, because it's then taking cash that's coming in from the sewer utility, mostly probably through connection fees and impact fees from transportation, and being able to actually spend those without having it hit your expenditure limit.
Okay. And then you took the rate down, the primary rate down 7 cents, and to get to that neutral, you'd have to take it down, is it another 7 cents?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, yes, I think it was something about combined to 14 cents to get to neutral. I think that's right.
Yeah, and then you have the sheets that show the amount of money that is a result of a rate increase, and then the balance of that is for the new growth, right? Do we have those numbers for the new growth?
Yeah, the new growth is approximately 1.05% of the total growth in the tax base of about 4.85%. So you get 3.8 appreciation and 1% new growth.
Okay. And then what costs are associated with the truth and taxation hearings? I know there's the advertising. Someone said you had to send notices out to individual taxpayers. That's not correct, is it? Okay.
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, no, it's advertising in the paper and holding the truth and taxation hearings, yes.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Christie, please.
Need a little clarification. I thought I heard earlier that the number of vacant FTEs is 700, because the chart says over 1,000.
1,050.
Okay, 1,050.
Yes, and what I said is that if you take, in our annual turnover is 15%, so 15% of our total employment base gives you this 700 plus that's always in flux, being hired and rehired.
And just as an observation, certainly there are vacancies of public safety that will require them to be filled, and an analysis of the vacancies in those public safety sectors. But is there any kind of a program that analyzes the need or the necessity to fill all of these vacancies, or isn't there a possibility that there's nothing that mandates that we have to fill these vacancies?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Christie, you know, that's true, except that we're probably recruiting for over half of those right now. So we have this continuing, ongoing recruitment process. If you look at the FTEs, and there's a table in the material I gave the board with 4 columns, and in those 4 columns gives you the budgeted FTEs in 1920, you know, not the budget in 1819, and the budgeted in 1920, and you can see which departments are actually reducing staff. And if you look at that table, you'll see, and this is kind of the methodology that we've kind of told the board we were doing anyway, the drop of about 70 FTEs occurred in the Department of Transportation. And that was because they had completed the capital program associated with both bonds and the RTA, and could reposition that investment back into pavement repair. And so you can kind of go through there, and there's another item that we've discussed with the board previously, and that is certain departments, what we call hoarding position control numbers. And they hoard position control numbers because when we construct the budget, we not only add in the salary, we add in the EREs. And so if you're a normal county department with an ERE of 30% plus.
As opposed to an abnormal county?
Well, as opposed to a department that has 100% EREs, i.e. Sheriff's Department, deputies, simply because of retirement, and that's understandable. But it gives you an idea how cash can be accumulated if you do not fill those FTEs.
So, Mr. Chairman, my question is that, and I think you're answering it, is there is an ongoing analysis of the need to replace every position that becomes vacant?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Christie, yes. And we've had an ongoing program to reduce the hoarding of PCNs so that we can get more realistic in budgeting. And that's why the assessor was, I think, in our hearings talking about reducing his budget by $700,000. And that was because of an example of hoarding PCNs to inflate the budget only to turn the money back year after year after year. And so our goal is to get more accurate budgeting by department.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think, you want to speak again? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say.
I'm in a generous mood today.
We always
My
called
family's
that
only been
padding the budget.
killers and murderers and all that
where
other stuff, so it's all okay. Go ahead, please.
When I worked in the private sector, we called that padding the budget. And we had that issue. But if I recall, I think the assessor still has a significant number of vacancies. Was it 35?
Yes, 34.
And 34, okay. And then you had, they had already taken out, what was it, about 700,000? And yeah, I think he was the only one, though, that was hit with that. And there were some other departments that I looked at that I think have maybe a little bit of hoarding going on.
A little bit of hoarding. I like that. Okay. Supervisor Christie, you know, I understand your concern about, you know, taking a careful look at how many employees we have, and I appreciate Mr. Huckleberry's response to that. But during the huge recession that took place in 2008, our employees took the brunt of that for almost 8 years without really expanding. In fact, contracting the number of employees that we had, and we placed that burden on their backs incredibly over that period of time. And it was not good for production. It was not good for morale. It was certainly not good for the wages that they earned either during that time period. So I'd caution us in going too far the other direction. Just that our employees work hard and they are good folks, and I do support them, having been a county employee myself. The other thing I'd add is that, you discussed the tight labor market, Mr. Huckleberry, and how that's affecting some of these positions and stuff. My question to you is the 1% that we're adding on to employee raises for people below 40 $5,000 per year. What is the effect if we were to add that on to, instead of beginning in January, beginning in September, when the other raises are scheduled to start?
Mr. Chairman, it's, you would proportion out 6 months of the 1% costs $535,000. So therefore, you proportion out September, so you're into July, August, and so you're 2 months of 4. So it's 2/3 of really $535,000, or
Okay.
roughly probably $400,000.
So that money is there without us increasing the total amount of the tentative budget that Supervisor Valadez has moved.
Mr. Chairman, essentially yes, because the instruction, the understanding I have is the $74,000 that's needed for the minimum wage will come from the reserve fund, or we call the ending fund balance. Same thing with any adjustments the board would do with regard to salaries. So if you make an extra 1% in January, it's really about an additional $535,000. Or if you make it in September, it's 535 plus about 400, or about $900,000. Our ending fund balance is about $41.6 million.
Oh, yeah, the money. Okay, so then I would ask the maker of the motion and the seconder to consider having these raises start in September rather than in January, sir, for those folks who are making less than $45,000 a year. Yes, okay, and I believe it was me that seconded it, so. No, it was Sharon. I couldn't remember. I apologize, Supervisor Bronson. You okay with that? Okay, very good. Any other comments from anybody? Okay, then roll call, please.
Supervisor Bronson? Supervisor Christie?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We're on to item 16, which is the review and adoption of the debt service tentative county budget for the fiscal year 2019-2020.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Valadez, please.
Again, if there's no one here to talk about this item, I would move that we close the public hearing and we approve the debt service tentative county budget for fiscal year 2019-20 in the amount of $107,861,884 for a rate of 0.6900.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Bronson? Supervisor Christie?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, that gets us through tentative budget. Yay. Very good. We're going to move on to the item 17 on the regular agenda, Board of Supervisors sitting as other boards, Flood Control District Board. Item 17, Riparian Habitat Mitigation Plan.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor
I'd
Christie.
like to move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're now sitting as the Board of Supervisors. Item 18, approval of consent calendar.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Miller, please.
I'd like to remove item number 3 and number 15 to be voted on separately.
3 and
please.
15 to be voted on separately. I'll move the remainder of consent.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to item 3. Chair will move the item. Second. Motion and a second. Supervisor Miller.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, I've never supported this $15 million for graduate medical education at the University of Arizona, so I just wanted to voice my objection again. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Roll call.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Christie?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
No.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Aye. Very good. Motion carries 4-1. We're on item 15 now on the consent calendar, Public Works Administration. This is for artist services for Keno South Sports Complex, Keno Stadium District. I'll move the item.
Second, Mr. Chairman, if I may add.
Please.
Pending the approval as dictated in the consent previously signed by Mr. Huckleberry and myself.
Okay.
We have to sign a document that they've gone through the process, and we've said that pending the final concept.
Mr.
Supervisor
Chairman,
Miller?
I just wanted to object to this since I've objected to this project, so that's why I'm objecting. It's not because of the public art concept.
Understand.
No, I like art, but I just do not support this project. And I like the fact that we have that policy here, because I think it's a good policy. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I will be objecting as well.
Okay. I think a life-size sculpture of Supervisor Valadez would be something that would be appropriate, but I'm not going to comment on any further on that. I'll just let it stand for the giggles in the crowd. Any objections? Yes. 2 noted, 1 for Supervisor Miller, 1 for Supervisor Christie. Motion carries 3-2. Okay, we got the consent calendar done. Yay. We're on to Clerk of the Board, item 20. Chair will move the item. Motion and a second. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to items 21 and, well, just stop there at 21. It's a pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have a little bit of discussion on this, but I will move to approve the development agreement
Second.
between Pima County and the Foothills Malls Partners. My question on this is regarding the development fees, the credits. Is this available for everyone, or is it available? I mean, I think in this time where you were talking about, Mr. Huckleberry, that our growth over the next few years is probably going to be relatively flat. So with the allowing these types of credit, getting older buildings redeveloped, reused, are we going to implement a policy on that?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller and Carmine can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think both of those credit functions in transportation impact fees as well as sewer connection fees are embedded in our ordinances already.
They're already there?
Yes.
Okay, this is the first time I've seen this. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, any objections? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Chair is going to move item 22 and 23.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. Chair will move item 24, including resolution 2019-40.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to items 25, 26, and 27. The chair will move all 3 of those items, if you don't mind, all together. Is everybody okay with that?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the meet and confer agreements for the Pima County Sheriff's Association and the American Federation of State and Community and Municipal Employees of Arizona. We have a motion and a second. I have an item to discuss. I'd like to hear what's going on with the issues surrounding the cap bank and if we're making any progress, because I'm very, very concerned of that, and I hear that there's no movement.
Mr. Chairman, let me let Kathy answer that question.
So, Mr. Chairman, the Meet and Confer
Could
Committee...
you please speak up? I can't hear you.
Yes, the Meet and Confer Committee has continued to meet with county members. We have 2 meetings every month until the end of July, and at that point, we are going to get an informational memo back to you. We just met yesterday, and we came up with some recommendations. So what we plan on providing to you are just topics of discussions that we are thinking might be possible, and present them to you so you know what we have come up with.
So do you feel like progress was made yesterday afternoon?
Absolutely.
Oh, well, that's a good change.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Very good. Okay, any other further discussion? If not, any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. We're on to hearings, franchises, licenses, and permits. These are public hearings. No one has signed up to speak. I'll go ahead and close the public hearings and move items 28, 29, 30, and 31.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to item 32, case number P18CA00007, Pima County, West River Road Plan Amendment. We have one speaker that has signed up to speak. Supervisor Miller, would you like to hear a staff report first, or do you want to hear speakers?
Mr. Chairman, either is fine, as long as we hear both of those.
Staff report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, before you is a request to amend the comprehensive plan to change the designation on the property from resource sensitive. Originally, the request was to multiple use. After hearing neighbor concern at the Planning and Zoning Commission, staff went and met with the adjacent Meadowbrook neighbors. I believe it was 4 times, and came up with a new set of recommended rezoning policies, including a request to change the overall request from resource sensitive to a less intense classification to the medium intensity urban use. Also, we have agreed to recommend that the board approve a policy that would only allow this use to be used for professional office, would only be rezoned to TR, and then a list of other stipulations about very sensitive neighbor design concern. That was a quick summary of our staff report.
Thank you very much. Our one speaker that has signed up is Joyce Berquist. Joyce, if you please come forward. Thank you for being so patient today. I know it's a hard waiting for your items sometimes, isn't it? Yes, it is. I know. I appreciate that. So give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to address the Board of Supervisors.
My name is Joyce Berquist. I'm a resident of Meadowbrook, and I'm here to request that, A, you read the letter that I left for all of you, and B, we're also asking that this go back to the zoning commission, or the planning commission, because they were not aware of some of the items that were going on with the road on Shannon. You have a map. Where would I, over here?
Just right there on that gold star thing.
Okay, upside down, or?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. Shannon Road does not go through on either side. It's divided by a wash. There's an east side and a west side. Neither road goes through. If you can look at the map, on the east side, number 5 is where it ends, south of Orange Grove. And on the west side, number 6 is where it ends, north of River Road. It's going to be a major, major problem with traffic if this gets rezoned, and there's just one single lane road to go across, and it would cause a lot of impact on both the east side and the west side of Shannon with the developers, with the developments that are there now, with just traffic getting out of the developments. And I'd like to thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any comments from the board? Supervisor Miller?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to ask Mr. Poirier to address the concern with the traffic, when that would be addressed, when it's appropriately addressed.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, we think it was at least partially addressed with the proposed rezoning policy set before you today, including the requirement that before we issue a certificate of occupancy for any of the buildings, assuming this gets approved, the county would be installing a right turn lane westbound at Shannon and River. That should alleviate some of the traffic concern, and that's directly related to this plan request. In addition to it, this is only a plan amendment request. If this is approved, then this would only give the right, in this case for the applicant, to then seek a rezoning thereafter. Typically at the rezoning stage, we get to another higher, more granular level of review So there will be more opportunity before the commission and the board at time of rezoning to have further discussions about her concerns.
Okay. Is it okay if she comes back up, if she has any further comments on that?
Certainly.
Were you aware of that?
You can come back forward, please, and state your name for the record again, just so we're making sure that we're legal, but thank you again.
Thank you. My name is Joyce Berquist. I was at some of the meetings that were held. I do not think that they're aware of the impact on the traffic as far as what goes north of the proposed property. And I know you all are also on the flood control board, and that is in the floodplain district, and it's going to create a problem. We are just north of the river, and if that river rises and floods, it is going to impact our houses, and that is part of the mitigation for that. So please take that into consideration.
Okay. One of the things is that the traffic, they did address it as Mr. Poirier discussed here, but also when these projects go to be built, that is when there's a lot more scrutiny and there's traffic studies, and they review all of that before anything can go in.
They were only looking at the traffic at the intersection of River and Shannon. They weren't looking at anything that goes north of the property that would take people to Orange Grove to go north, because the road does not go through.
Okay, I will ask Mr. Poirier to address that. And then on the flood issues, I can tell you the rules are very strict. They're in place that they're not allowed to cause any more flooding on your properties once the project is developed. You cannot have runoff that increases as a result of the development. So that is the rules in flood control, and those also will be developed. Or, excuse me, those will be addressed when the project is developed. That's when the scrutiny will come on from the flood control district.
Okay, thank you.
And I will ask Chris to address your concern about the traffic to the north. And you can be seated if you don't have anything else to say. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, she's correct in that that specific proposed policy is going to primarily address just the Shannon River intersection. But there was a traffic flow analysis done, not just at River and Shannon. There was a preliminary traffic analysis done by our Department of Transportation that helped us craft the end proposed use of a professional office at this location. Part of the consideration was that most people living in that area, the residents living in that area are going to be going in a different direction, whereas the folks going to this professional office are kind of going to go against traffic. So from a adding capacity standpoint, that was addressed, and that did help us lead to the proposed use of professional office, where again, they're not going to be adding traffic flows with everybody leaving. It's going to be going against it. And despite all that, again, as you mentioned earlier, at rezoning, we're going to do it again and at a higher level.
They'll do a much more detailed traffic
That's
study
correct.
at the time.
Correct.
And the one thing I'd like to note is that by eliminating that, you did eliminate the light industrial, so you're, as you said, you're not going to have that traffic moving in and out at the peak times of the day. Okay. So I hope you feel better that there's going to be a lot more scrutiny when if these projects come forward for rezoning. And they will do much more detailed flood analysis, and they're not allowed to let additional waters flow off the property to impact neighbors. So I know those are very strict rules they have in place at the flood control department. So with that, I will.
Well, just a second, Supervisor.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask if the owner or the owner's representative in the room would like to make any comments.
Are they here?
I don't think so. I just wanted to make sure that we give them the opportunity.
I
to.
didn't
Thank you,
think they were
Supervisor
here.
Miller, for your indulgence. Please
Okay.
go ahead.
With that, I will move to close the public hearing and approve Comprehensive Plan Amendment P18CA 00007 Pima County West River Road Plan Amendment as recommended by Planning and Zoning Commission as well as staff. Second.
Motion and a second to approve case number P18CA 00007 Pima County, West River Road Plan Amendment. Close the public hearing with planning and zoning. Well, no, with the approval as the, somehow it just didn't want to come out of my mouth, did it, Ally?
Nope.
As the motion that succeeded in Planning and Zoning Commission 4-3 and with staff's approval as well. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Well, item 33 has been continued. Item 34, we have a number of speakers who have signed up to speak to. This is case number P17CU00001, Arizona Ironwood LLC, East Duncan Verde Road. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 speakers, and then one person who's already spoken on this item, Mr. Moreno. So we have 4 speakers. Mr. Christie, what's your pleasure? We want to hear us from staff first, or do you want to hear her out?
I think it'd be best if we had the folks that are here to speak against the plan or that have concerns with it.
Okay. Our first speaker is going to be Lisa Christel. Pardon me? I'm sorry, I suppose. Cortez? Yeah, that's a Z on the end. I apologize for mispronouncing your name.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
We're the owners and in favor.
Oh.
We're not against.
Okay. Well, then, do you want to speak now, or you want to let these other folks speak, and then maybe you'll have a chance
might have a chance to comment.
Would that be fair? Okay. Okay, Ora Robinson. Oren. Yeah. Thank you. Please come forward, sir. Give us your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to lay it on us, okay?
I'm Warren Robinson. My wife and myself, we own the property that's directly to the west of this development. I guess our concerns are, well, it started as a small restaurant, now it's a large restaurant. So I think the only real compromise that's fair to everybody is if we go by the recommendations of the hearing administrator. And the restaurant loses some things. We don't get everything we want, so it's just a compromise.
Yeah, kind of a King Solomon thing, huh?
Yeah, it's.
I got it.
You know, just take what you can get.
All right.
But
Thank you for your
Mi-
patience today.
Mr. Chairman, just a
Speaking up.
clarification. So
Supervisor Brownson.
you're comfortable with the hearing administrator's recommendation?
Right.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think that's the only thing that's sort
Okay.
of fair to all parties.
Okay.
Okay, that's good. Our next speaker is going to be Margie Robinson. Ms. Robinson, thank you for being here and being patient today. So I'll ask you to come forward and give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to address the Board of Supervisors.
Hi, I'm Margie Robinson, and this is in regards to the restaurant, the Barnyard. They've been really good, the owners, about having us over and trying to see how we can all work together. It's very appreciated. I think we're representing a lot of neighbors in the area. I believe a lot of them have sent in comments versus email for you. I think a lot of us presented all our concerns in front of Jim Portner, and so he really got to hear what everything we were really concerned with, and he came up with the list of recommendations. And overall, I think it's a really, really good list. I was very, very concerned about the noise level of the restaurant, and one of his recommendations was that the restaurant Sunday through Thursday, the exterior or the outside would only be open till 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday till 10. And we just really love that recommendation, as well as on the outside, the exterior TVs and music would be non-amplified. Not that they couldn't have somebody come sing, but it wouldn't be with speakers and being amplified. So we thought that was really reasonable in going from a site that was roughly 3,500 square feet to a restaurant that now involves over 7,000 square feet. So I think especially with so many residents around. I think we're all thinking that this could work out really well for the restaurant and then also keep our rural lifestyle that we have. And it was a really good compromise situation. One thing that we had been talking about over the last month with the owners was the smoker, and we are not wanting the smoker due to the smell. And the recommendation is for no smoker for meats and for their food, and we all continue to not want a smoker. And so once again, Jim Portner's recommendation of not having one, we all think is the very best. I think kind of the last item on there is I know that there's a wall partially to be constructed, and I think the next speaker wanted to speak on that, so I won't reiterate the same thing. But I think overall, I think we can all work together if we go with the recommendations that are given to this board.
So just to reinforce, you're comfortable with the recommendations of the hearing administrator?
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I get hungry
other
every time I
questions?
smell carne asada too. So.
Thank you.
I guess it shows. Don't frown. Okay, next speaker is going to be Courtney Rebuff. Is that right? Did I get it right or even not? Roberts, I'm sorry. God, I'm just not reading things right today. Courtney, thank you for being patient and being here with us. Give us your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to address the Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Courtney Roberts. My husband and I own the house that is directly west of the property. I printed out a map. I just thought maybe that would help. We're the
Put
pink.
it on that little star thing, and then we can, put it up on the screen and
turn it around.
See what you do in your house. Oh, look at that. No, I'm just kidding.
Our property is the pink, the barnyard's blue, and Margie and Rye are yellow. And again, I won't go over everything that everyone has, but we did appreciate the recommendation. We felt that all the letters we wrote and when we came up and presented longer speeches at the last meeting, that the recommendation really accommodated a lot of things that Jerry and Lisa are wanting, but also took into consideration those of us who live there and are raising our kids and are used to, the quiet and the peacefulness out there. So again, my husband and I also agreed with the recommendations on the no smoker. That was a big issue. The wall for us is an issue, again, as our property and our yards line, the length of the barnyard. In the recommendation, it did state that they're to construct a wall, and we just wondered if where the wall is placed is right. It currently our thoughts on the wall are to be at the front of the property, which doesn't really block our house so much. So even if it didn't get moved, we would still be okay with a partial wall. Again, we'll take what we can get, but we thought it was a fair compromise. And again, we're not opposed to a restaurant being there. We just want it to be an appropriate restaurant for the area and for those of us living immediately around it.
So you too are comfortable with the recommendations of the hearing officer?
Yes, and I believe, like
With a
Margie
little
said, a couple
work on
other
the
neighbors.
wall?
Yes, yeah.
And you feel also that even though they may not be here, that the other neighbors in that direct vicinity would be as comfortable as well?
Yes, a couple of them are here. Actually, they just chose not to speak. I think they emailed in their thoughts. But the Ramirez residents down the road, there's one more house in that area, and he is here as well. And the Chadjis emailed, I believe. But they all have the same concerns, the music and the smoker and the privacy, the lighting. I think Jerry and his wife are very reasonable about, they want us to be happy. They want everyone in the area to be happy, and they've been pretty reasonable with, telling us that they'll accommodate not having lighting facing the houses and that kind of a thing. But yes, all the neighbors kind of had the concerns that were addressed in the recommendation.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts.
Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if there's anyone else who is not representing the development of the property is here that wants to speak for that project. If not, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to. Yes. Did he fill out the card?
Sir, I appreciate you coming forward to speak. I'm going to ask you to come forward, give your name for the record. You can speak for 3 minutes, and then I would ask you to complete a green card before you go back to your seat. That way we know that we have your information. And you know how it is in this country, you can't speak without a green
Sure,
card.
I'll be glad to do that. Paul Ramirez. Live within 1,000 feet of this project. I really don't have any issues, and I think like everybody's reiterated, they've been very accommodating and, keeping us abreast of what's going on. I think a concern here that I have is for you guys. That there's a lot of traffic there, and it's not well lit. And there's going to be, Mr. Moreno was here this morning, and him and I have been longtime friends, and he has concerns that there's going to be people walking back and forth there at night with vehicles. The minimum speed there is 45 miles an hour. Most of the time that's in excess in that area, and sometimes 75 and 80 miles an hour. There's a little hill that comes right off of that from the junior high. I just think that somehow or another we need to address that, and now have concerns that kids will be going back and forth there to the restaurant, back and forth from the junior high. I sure would hate. There has been probably, we've lived there 20 years, and I know of at least 7 really bad accidents. Matter of fact, the county knows that intersection well, that three-way intersection. When the wash is running, there really becomes a lot of traffic because no longer are they able to feed from the wash areas, they have to feed from Houghton. So that's something that I think that should be addressed, we certainly don't want to see anybody get hurt. That is one of my major
Well, with
concerns.
your permission, sir, could we have the staff make a comment regarding the traffic issue as described?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Christie, members of the board, that issue was vetted extensively between the applicant and the Department of Transportation. The Department of Transportation is very aware of the dynamics with this particular site. They already have a proposed improvement plan project on the books to improve the very intersection that the gentleman is speaking about. The applicant is making a $14,000 contribution toward that improvement project, and that's been stipulated as one of the special conditions in this recommended approval.
When is that going to be completed, though?
Perhaps the Department of Transportation could comment on that.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, the project will be advertised for bid in a few weeks.
What does that mean, please?
So, I'm sorry. So once it opens for bids, within about 3 months, we should be able to start the work, and it'll take about 9 to 12 months.
Does that include lighting for it, the area as well?
Yes, it will include the signalized intersection and lighting at the intersection.
Thank you very much for your comments. sir.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Chairman, if there's no one else that is not.
I don't know if the developers want to speak in.
I was just going to say, if there's no one else that is not part of the development, wishes to speak, don't see anyone, I'd like to ask that the representatives of the development make a statement.
Please state your name for the record, and we'll let you speak for as long as you want. But I'd make it short.
That's very generous. Members of the board, community members, my name's Jerry Cortez, and this is my wife, Lisa. We represent TK Family LLC. It's known as the Barnyard. We remain quite excited about this opportunity and the development that we're involved in. Since the 4th of April, we've spent some time talking to the neighbors and reflecting on Mr. Portner's recommendation. And we also are in agreement with Mr. Portner's recommendation. And we're grateful for the work that he's done and the work that staff has done and the support of the neighbors. So the only thing that I would offer is I just wanted to show this. There was Mr. Moreno's concern about parking. Everything there.
Spin it around.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Everything there in gray is parking at 76 parking places. Some of it is inside the wall, which is where the colored section is, and some of it is outside the wall. So we've met and somewhat exceeded the required parking to have on-site parking. And I don't mean to diminish the concern that Mr. Moreno had regarding people coming across. We don't want people crossing a 45-mile-an-hour zone either. There's also some discussion about there's a road on the west, Mesquite Thicket. We're proposing to put some signage there that's only for neighbors and not for any thoroughfare, as well as on the easement. So we're attempting to do everything that we know how to do to address the parking issue. So
How about the wall issue that was raised by one of the speakers?
what Mr. Portner recommended was a wall that extends along that west property where Courtney and Jordan are, and to some extent where Rye and Margie are, that would go 10 feet north of this water retaining pond. So what's proposed is a 6-foot cinder block wall, which is what we have on the south side of the property and also on the east side of the property. I think that addresses it. I don't know that there's a specific recommendation or an ask of Courtney and Jordan on where we place that wall, but we're certainly most willing to do what Mr. Portner's recommended.
So in other words, your bottom line basically is that you agree with Mr. Portner's recommendation and you're
Yes.
willing to comply with the conditions he set there forth.
We do.
Did you want any more statements from staff, or does that fairly sum up the position?
I would invite any statements from staff if they'd like to offer them.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Please.
I believe the question surrounding the wall was about its height. And they said they were willing to live. If I'm correct, am I correct? That's what you were saying?
We were just curious where exactly the wall was, because it's worded in the paperwork.
Wait, I need you to come forward and speak into the microphone. I'm sorry, I apologize to you. But I just want to make sure that we got this clear. And state your name for the record again.
Courtney Roberts.
Thank you, Courtney.
We just wondered where exactly the wall is supposed to be placed. We were under the impression that it would the point of the wall is to block us so that we had some kind of privacy, which to me means our house and the backyard, not so much our, 3/4 of an acre property to the front. And it looks like the placement of the wall would block our front yard versus like our actual house and then bedroom windows and that kind of thing. So we just wondered, we didn't want to make it complicated because we really did think that Mr. Portner's recommendations were great, and I didn't want to draw away from all of the issues, but we just wondered about the placement. I mean, obviously, we wanted a whole wall.
Do you understand, you feel better about it now, or would you still prefer a change?
I mean, we would
Be
take any.
honestly, please.
I mean, ideally, we wanted the whole wall, the whole parking lot, because the parking lot is the entire length, but we were willing to compromise, and a partial wall is better than not. We just wondered if.
So how much would that add on to the wall? Her request.
Sorry.
I would say it basically doubles the length of it. So I think it double the price of it, basically.
You willing to accept that?
If I could offer one other, as we're having a discussion.
Please, go ahead.
I think our closest near neighbors and the ones that are most affected by it are here, which are, they've said their concerns. The cinder block wall is a continuation of what's there now.
Right.
And it's okay. I think we could do better. I didn't want to reopen this and extend by suggesting that we do a different kind of a wall, which I think would be more effective, and I think it also would help Ryan and Margie in that I'm getting a price of what it would take to put a wall on that entire west side and have it be metal as opposed to be cinder block. We could raise it higher. It wouldn't be 6 feet. We could have it be 8 feet. We could accommodate whatever flood concerns would be by having it raised 2 feet off the ground.
Sure.
We could set it back from, there's currently a chain link fence on the west side of the property.
Right.
We could set it back, which would address one of the concerns that Jordan and Courtney had regarding, if somebody takes a beer bottle and throws it over the wall.
Right.
We could set it back so if somebody's did that, it would land on our property, not on anybody else's property. So if this is open for discussion, my preference would be to put a metal wall.
Talking about corrugated metal type thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'd be more attractive and more effective.
You okay with that, Courtney?
Yeah, my husband owns a contracting company, family owned and operated for 40 years. And so we are familiar with pricing, and a block wall is exceedingly more expensive than a metal one. We would be more than happy if it was a permanent, similar to what the neighbors down the road have. Jerry and Lisa know. We would be okay if it went the entire length of the property on our side, the west side, and it was a permanent corrugated metal, which would save costs, but also do the whole length. You know.
So the bottom line on this issue is that you'd be willing to collaborate with the owners and the neighbors to find a remedy that would be satisfactory to yourself and to the neighbors.
Yes, we would probably just request that the wall be there when the restaurant open.
Right.
You know.
That's part of the condition, so.
Yeah, we would be willing.
Very good.
Mr. Portner's asking if he can speak, Steve.
Mr.
that
Chairman,
okay
if I
with you?
could, Supervisor Christie, just to clarify here, so we've got all the particulars straight on the table. The whole purpose of the condition was to provide screening and prohibit the intrusion of light from cars, parking, and maneuvering in the expanded parking lot that's located now kind of oriented north-south on the left side of the buildings. So the whole point was to have an effective screen there that would take care of that function. Where the written condition has it ending is just north of the water harvesting basin, which is kind of the rounded rectangular basin. If you can you point it out for me on there, please? The basin? Yeah, that's the basin. So it would end about 10 feet north of there. I think it was stated that if we moved it further northward to screen the entire parking, it would effectively double. That's not really accurate, I think. Let's keep in mind it was just to screen the parking lot, which I think you'd have to basically extend it for 3 more parking spaces, so that would be 27 to 30
27 feet, yeah.
The neighbor has asked about extending it all the way northward to the northwest property corner. That was not articulated in my condition, but it's something, you know, that seems to be on the table here with the owner. If they want to convert it to a metal, I don't care from my end what the material is, as long as it preserves the functions that was originally intended for, which was to screen both visually and provide noise abatement.
I understand. You okay with that, sir?
We are.
Okay, good.
Do you have any other questions, Mr. Chairman?
No, I think that really takes care of it. I was gonna say, thank you to all you as the developers and to the neighbors for being so reasonable and practical about the whole thing.
While we have our neighbors here in Courtney, I'd ask you to.
Could you speak in the mic?
Oh, sure. So the neighbors were very clear, as was Mr. Portner, on no smoker on the property, concerned about the fumes and the smell, and also the extended use of how long you would smoke something. I guess the question I would have is, it's also an outdoor oven that doesn't need to function as a smoker. And so I think staff would say that there's a prohibition on us having that use as an oven, not as a smoker. But I was just curious how our neighbors would feel about it if we accepted the prohibition of a smoker, but using that as a oven.
Any comment to that?
Mr. Chairman, again, if I could jump in. We usually don't broker these kinds of things out at a hearing because there's always consequences that unintended come up later that haven't been thought through sufficiently. I just want to make it clear, what I heard loud and clear from the neighbors was the concern with a smoker that would run beyond normal business hours. And I love the smell of smoked meat, but I don't think I want to smell it 24 hours a day for the rest of my life if I'm a neighbor. So the whole point in my recommendation was, you want to have an outdoor dining area, fine. You want to have an outdoor kitchen and a pizza oven, no problem. But to me, the smoker was an issue, and any way that it would be operated differently from what we might call a quote-unquote smoker, but would still have the same impacts of generating the smells of cooking meat for long periods of time, again, is kind of outside what the premise of my original conditions were, to try and control that particular factor, since it was something of great import to the neighbors.
Okay. Well, at this particular point, it seems to me that you folks are willing to comply with the conditions, and you have the cooperation of the community. So I would like to Thank you. Unless you have anything else, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to close public hearing and move the motion to accept P17C U00001, Arizona Ironwood LLC, East Tanque Verde Road, and approve the request and subject to standard and special conditions as set forth by staff.
What about the wall?
What about the wall? And the wall, instead of the concrete, the
Right.
cinder block?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, board members, it may be appropriate to change that last condition on the wall to have it extend to the northern point of the parking area and be configured in a material subject to the agreement between the neighbors. If not, it should be a block wall.
Subject to the agreement with the neighbors.
Correct.
Then I would take that amendment into the motion.
Thank you, Supervisor. Very good. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're on to item 35. This is the hearing on the bike ranch. We have 7 speakers that have signed up to speak. I don't know if all of them are still here. So I'm going to go ahead and open the hearing and hear these 7 speakers. I'm not going to ask for any staff report or anything. This is just to make sure that you have your chance to speak out today. And we're not sure when this is really going to get heard again, but hopefully it'll meet everybody's expectation. And I would advise you that you're welcome to come back and speak again. I'm not going to prohibit that or just leave you with only one chance to speak. Excuse me. So, we have one person who did not wish to speak. It was Bill Cunningham, and he said he does not want this development. The next the first speaker is going to be Margaret. Boy, that's a hard one to read. Fitz? Or 1175 East Irvington, or 11750 East Irvington. Nobody here like that? Going, gone. Okay. Tom Colorell? Nope. Okay. Meg Wiesner? Nope. Deborah Derns? Deborah, you did it. I knew we'd find one of you. You're welcome. Please give us your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to address the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, Deborah Derns. And I ask for your help because we all need to realize that this Saguaro National Park East was built over millions and millions and millions of years. It's a non-renewable resource, and many people in the area and anywhere, I think, are unaware of just exactly how precious it is. We need to preserve it. There's an increasing world population and rapidly decreasing opportunity for people, especially people of modest means, to be able to enjoy the outside, peaceful, tranquil, natural, uncrowded surroundings, and to sort of commute with nature. They're just decreasing opportunities everywhere for that. Pima County has a unique opportunity to preserve that for all people. The buffer zone was created to provide a transition for the park and the natural surroundings. The aesthetics going to and from the park are important. There was a comparison of the three of the elite Tucson resorts, Canyon Ranch, Maryville, Tanque Verde. It's interesting to me to realize that Tanque Verde Guest Ranch is on about 600 acres of private property. Maryville, 400 acres. Canyon Ranch, 100, I read different estimates, 100 to 150 acres. Sure. These agencies provided their own natural resources. This bike ranch on 19.23 acres, that's 9 times the density allowed for private single-family homes in the area, and that density is appropriate, suburban ranch. Really makes me think that the bike ranch plan is to utilize public property for private benefit. So they are socializing the risk and the losses and privatizing the gains. This is not socialism country yet. Guess my time's up, but nobody is
No, you got another
protesting.
minute.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks. Oh, 55, thank you very much. It's not a socialist country yet. We have this opportunity to preserve for all the people, the Americans, future residents and current residents, and as I said, especially people of modest means who cannot fly their helicopter, their private plane to an island or the top of a mountain. They might even not have gas. And we're the only area that has a national park, and East is more biodiverse than the West Side Park. We're the only area. We should market that. I think that that's available to people in close proximity to an urban area. We should market that. Tucson and Pima County would be well advised to implement preservation of this very, very precious and non-renewable natural resource.
Yeah.
Thank you. And please read about the Madre and Sky Islands. When I was preparing for this earlier, I had never heard of the Madre and Sky Islands, and it really points out the unique, special diversity that we have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're right. It is a urban national park, which is very strange, very unusual in this country. And actually, there's only 3 national parks in the state of Arizona.
Is that right?
One of them is the Grand Canyon, the other one is Woods Canyon, and the third is Saguaro National Park. That's it. Thank you. Next speaker is CJ France. CJ France, going, gone. Beth Miner. Beth, come on forward, please. Thank you for being here. You wore your apron today. Thank you for being here and being patient. I appreciate it.
Thank you. My name is Beth Miner. I live in District 4. I am not in the buffer area or the area of the immediate impact, but I've had a bed and breakfast since 1994, or started to build it in 1994 with my late husband. He's honored here with a name tag. He died 5 years ago. I continue to operate it, and I'm on Snyder Road between Houghton and Catalina Highway. Saguaro National Park East is it's a regional treasure, and it's something that when people come to Tucson, they may come to shop, they may come to dine with our UNESCO gastronomical whatever. They may come to visit the attractions, the Sonoran Desert Museum and others. I would say a large percentage of them, while they're in the area, go to Saguaro National Park East or West. And what little I know of this, and I have to say I'm a Johnny-come-lately to this because I simply wasn't aware of it. I run a bed and breakfast by myself. And so it's, I basically came from the kitchen to get here today. So, and I'll go home and clean.
Thank you for doing that.
But I do want you to take into consideration just that it's something that impacts more than just the people in that area. People come from around the world. I have a map on my wall that has over 24 countries of people that have just visited me. I have a 4-room bed and breakfast, and every state in the nation. I've had guests, and to have Saguaro National Park to be so available, just as you approach it, I'd like it to be maintained in a very natural state. So I think that's all I was going to say.
Okay, very
Thank
good.
you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. And our final speaker is Roger Carpenter, all the way from District 5. Thank you, Roger, for coming in. I know we can always count on your sage wisdom. Give us your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to talk to us.
My name is Roger Carpenter. I came down here this morning not realizing there was going to be a continuation, but decided to speak today in order to call attention to the newer members of the board at the end of my talk here about a previous case involving this sort of thing. I'm here to speak about the bike ranch, and like you, I've seen the newspaper articles and read online. Most of the letters sent to your office is about this proposal. Those in favor extol the benefits of bike riding for the environment, for health, and because attracting cyclists to Tucson will boost the economy. I was a regular bike rider. I commuted to work for 20 years, and after retirement rode for exercise for another 20 years. My son was a professional cyclist. I love bikes, but I'm also a native Tucsonan with greater affection for this environment. I am opposed to the bike motel for two reasons. First, I don't believe that a commercial enterprise belongs across the road from a national park in a buffer zone designed to separate parks from high-intensity development. Second, many of us are concerned about the precedent that would be set by the approval of this commercial proposal. As you know, whether it's permitting houses on protected ridges or businesses in buffer zones, if approved, it makes it more difficult to deny such requests in the future. It seems to me that the question before you is not whether bikes are fun or healthy exercise, or whether attracting cyclists to Tucson benefits the economy, but the real question is whether Pima County should allow commercial development in the buffer zones designed to protect parklands. I remind the board of another precedent. In the year 2000, there was a proposal to build a businessman's resort, Rancho del Monaco, on the southwest corner of Gates Pass Road, Gates Pass Road and Camino de Oeste. The similarities are striking. It was to be built on 20 acres in SR zoning. It would have casitas, but without any 35-foot high buildings. This built property is across the road, across Gates Pass Road from land that was or soon would be added to Tucson Mountain Park. And it was at the entrance to the valley you drive westward through to the Desert Museum and Saguaro National Park West. The neighbors protested over the increase in traffic, nighttime lighting, damage to wildlife habitat, as do the objectors to the bike motel today. On June 6, 2000, the Board of Supervisors, by a vote of 5-0, denied approval to Rancho del Monaco. I hope that this board will do the same whenever it comes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Okay. Nice comments. As you're raising your hand, do you want to speak?
Please.
Please come forward.
Thank you.
I'm going to need you to fill out a green card after you finish. State your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to address the Board of Supervisors.
Harvey Ross. I live on 11707 East Old Spanish Trail. Mr. Christie, you're my representative on the board. I'd like to ask each and every one of you to consider what has happened over the many years. Years ago, there was progressive people that thought, save some land for the public. They did that, and that park is one of them. In 83, forget now, 83, something happened in 83, I'm sorry. But anyway, there's been this progressive feeling that, hey, let's keep this for the public. Let's keep this for the future. And that's where it's at. I speak about those for the future. Today we have a developer that wants to develop land. All you're giving them, in my humble opinion, is carte blanche on the other 40, or the total 45. But there's another 25 acres that has been undeclared. It's not supposed to be entertained. Once you break this covenant of suburban ranch with this covenant, you've opened the barn door, and you can't put Pandora back into that box. You have to think long, hard of what your answer is going to be today. Really. And I know I've been sitting back there all this meeting, and I've seen it's going to take that lady less than 10 seconds for you people to give an answer that's going to affect our future generations. Be very wise in what you vote for. You can't take a total bureaucracy of bureaucrats. They are paid to provide you with a source of information. You can't take it depending all the time on that.
what you need to do is look to the future and look at what you are going to vote for the future. I'm still on caution, I know. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
There's a lot of people that are not here today because we didn't know if this was going to be a continuing resolution for the 2nd of July.
Right, we understand
So
that.
there's a lot of people that did not show up in yellow. Oh, thank you.
We know there's a huge group.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think that it should be a national. We should get our federal people into this and looking at it. So if a continuing resolution, whatever the proper language is, we might want to kick it up another level.
I understand.
Mr. Christie, Chairman, rest of you, thank you.
Thank you. While I differ with my colleagues significantly many times, please rest assured that we all five of us take very seriously our charge on voting on these matters, and it is not an easy thing, and it's not something that's considered in 10 seconds. Nor do we take the word of the bureaucracy just for taking the word of the bureaucracy. I assure you, ask Mr. Huckleberry. Very good, thank you. So this hearing is going to stand in recess until the first meeting in July, unless something changes between now and then, and hopefully it will. We're on to item 36, hearing traffic resolution, including resolution 2019-41. Chair will move the item.
And close the
Close
hearing.
public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion, objections, hearing none. Motion carries. We're on to the addendum. We're on to Pascual-Yaqui, item 3, Pascual-Yaqui Tribe State Shared Revenue Program Funds, including resolution 2019-45. Chair will move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion, objections, hearing none. Motion carries. We're on to item 4, designation of agent resolution, including resolution 2019-43.
Move the item.
Motion and a second. Discussion, objections, hearing none. Motion carries. We're on to item 4, pavement preservation individual job order limit. Chair will move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion, objections, hearing none. Motion carries. We're on to contract award, community services, employment and training, item 6.
Move the item.
Thank you, Supervisor Valadez. We had a second there from somebody? Yes. Okay, we have second from Ally. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to item 7, Arizona Public Service Company.
Move the item.
Motion and a second. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to item 8, procurement.
Item 9 needs to be heard first.
Yeah, that's what it says. Okay. Item 9.
I'll move the item.
Thank you, Supervisor. I'll second.
Supervisor Miller just seconded.
No, there's no reason to do that. Supervisor Miller, second. Discussion?
Yes, Chairman.
Supervisor Valadez.
This item is contingent upon approval of addendum item 8.
They both say that, so. Okay, could the clerk clarify?
One is for 8 and one is for 9.
But they both cross
But
over
they
and
both
that
say the same, it's circular.
Yeah.
It's circular, it's not separate.
Well, you want to do 8 and 9 together?
Why don't we do that?
I will withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Move both items.
Thank you, Supervisor. A motion and a second to approve items 8 and 9. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to item 10.
Move the item.
Motion and a second, discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. If nobody has any problems, I'll move the remainder of the addendum.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. Hearing no objections, this meeting stands adjourned.